Hello, everybody, and welcome to Outer Rim transmission number 21. I am joined by a new face today, and that would be Steven Shinder is going to be our guest on this week's show. Of course, we're joined by Ben. Milton is out on some Jedi business, so he will not be able to be on today, but he did leave us a review for overall for season 1 of The Bad Batch, which we are going to get into. But first, let's have our listeners and our viewers hear about Steven Shinder. What are you up to, man? What do? You have that awesome podcast that I've been on. Here we go.
Yeah, great to be here. I've had you on several episodes of my podcast, Delayed Replay, which takes place in a universe where like the movies that got delayed came out on time. And so it's basically improvised. So we make stuff up and recap and review movies. I think I've had you on the Jurassic World Dominion episode with a couple other people, and the Tomb Raider 2 episode, and like several others, or even a few like Star Wars book related ones. Yeah, like that's a lot of fun. And I also do like a podcast with my dad called Yes Shift, where we talk about the prog rock band Yes, and like both of those are a lot of fun and can be found on Anchor, Apple, and Spotify. And yeah, it's basically what I do podcasting wise. And every once in a while I'll guest on like a friend's podcast. Like last week I was on Dr. Holocron's channel talking with him and another friend about the Bad Batch finale. And I thought that was going to be like the end of me talking about the Bad Batch season 1. But then I got the message from you and I was like, oh, okay. Like, I guess still doing this. That's fun. And like, there was like a bunch of other things that came out for Star Wars news wise this week. So like, what an episode to be on.
Yeah. It's almost like I've been waiting here in the shadows. Like, when's the best time to bring on Steven Shinder? And everything's just lined up. So I'm happy to kind of return the favor after you mentioned I've been on several episodes. I think the most recent one we did was the Space Jam Tony Hawk crossover, which is perfect for me.
Stage Jam.
Because I was like, yes, like I love Tony Hawk. Like I used to skateboard for like 15 years, like, or 10 years, whatever. But like, it was really fun. And talk about a way to like bring in a bright side to the pandemic. Like, this is such an awesome idea to create that podcast. And it's just so fun to go off the rails and just have a good time doing it. And just like, let's see how further and further we can kind of spin this weave of this story and just go on and on. And sometimes it's like, oh, I wonder how close we're going to go to actually hitting the nail on the head with these stories when they actually come out. Because now the movies are finally coming out. I mean, as you guys watch the channel, I've been putting up reviews almost weekly. It's been great to finally see some of these things coming out. But yeah, man, I really do have a good time. And it's going to be a great discussion. As you said, tonight we have so much to get into. We're going to be talking about the brand new Star Wars Visions trailer, breaking that out, the first Star Wars anime feature of TV series on Disney Plus. We're also going to be talking about a ton of comic book news. And of course, as the title suggests, we're going to be talking about the Bad Batch season 1 as a whole. Last week, we talked about the finale specifically with Milton and Ben, and we are going to break down the entire first season and kind of compare it to other first seasons of Star Wars animation and just talk about it, in a vacuum with itself about how it is doing and where things might end up in the future. As always, we open up the show with our week in Star Wars. So I'm going to throw it over to Ben this time around.
Well, thanks again for always having us on. So for my week in Star Wars, it was interesting. It started out really good after the show, actually, last week. We got done on the podcast, and like I said, I went and started playing Jedi Fallen Order, and I played it. I played it Friday night a little bit, played it a few hours on Saturday, and then a little bit on Sunday. But by that time, I really enjoyed it. Like I got to where I like got off Baraka and all that. And that game, up to that point anyways, it had a really like Force Unleashed vibe to it, which I really liked. And, it was a whole lot of fun. It really brought back memories of Force Unleashed. And then all of a sudden on Monday, another game under EA decided to like sideswipe my Jedi Fallen Order missions, and that was Madden. And since then, I've been pretty much been playing Madden this entire week, many sleepless nights and things, grinding away on that game. So yeah, my week in Star Wars started out with Jedi Fallen Order, and it's been taken over by another EA property.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just looking at video games in general for a moment here, because guys, as watching this channel, I talk about video games every chance I get, so I'm going to use this platform to talk about video games right now, because why not? August used to be like the desolate wasteland of the video game sphere. Like, you would get to August to be like, I guess I'll play this 5-year-old game that I never got to. And now it's like, especially if you like have Xbox, it's like they put out Psychonauts 2, they put out 12 minutes. For Avengers fans, we got the War for Wakanda expansion, so I've been grinding away with Black Panther and that. So like, August all of a sudden has become a huge month for gaming. So yes, I've been also gaming, like I mentioned, Black Panther, been grinding that out. So a lot of fun to be had there. Last week I mentioned that I introduced my girlfriend to the Clone Wars movie, and this week we sat down and watched like the first actual episode before the show started today. I think Ben just asked me, hey, watching release order or chronological. I'm actually just watching it release order, just watching it through the Disney Plus app, just going through. So we watched that first episode, and man, oh man, I just love that episode. It's such a great way to open up the Clone Wars, because you have such a story, a deep story, seeing these clones and actually humanizing the clones right from the very first episode of the season. And we actually see how this blossoms into, characters like Fives and Rex and Echo, and how they kind of become like the face of the Clone Wars, even though we have Anakin and Obi-Wan and all those other big characters. So, and I just love the wisdom that Yoda just gives these clones, and especially at that moment that he's like in the cave and he's like dismantling his one of their blaster rifles to use as a crutch and all this stuff. And it's just such profound wisdom, and the writing is so good in that episode that it's like I could watch that episode on repeat like all day long, probably. It's just that good.
Yeah, I have a friend who it took him a while to try starting and getting through the Clone Wars, because he would watch that first episode and be like, it's just Yoda. And I thought to myself, what do you mean it's just Yoda? Like, Yoda is awesome. He's great in that episode. It's like the best of both the prequel version that's like powerful and kind of serious, but also the original trilogy version where he's like more down to earth and can like joke around and be silly and whatnot. Like, it's crazy. I love that episode.
Oh yeah, that's a great point, bringing up that he's like the Empire Strikes Back Yoda and the prequel Yoda all at once.
Yeah.
And it's got one of the funniest moments in all of Star Wars. I don't care, like the droid humor, sometimes it doesn't land for me, but like in that episode when they're, the tanks are in the convoy, they're going through, and Yoda like opens up the hatch on the battle tank, and you see like from the perspective of the droid in like the turret getting sucked down through the Force by Yoda. He's like, but I just got promoted. Like, that just, I don't know, it cracks me up every time.
Oh yeah, that's one of the best parts about the Clone Wars. Like, it has a bunch of little charming moments like that. And then, we get really serious episodes like the Mortis arc and things like that, So Clone Wars is such a nice mix of like the fun of Star Wars, but also the serious and action of Star Wars. Like, sure, there are some like cheesy, questionable things in Clone Wars, in my opinion. Like, I think the most eye-rolling thing in Clone Wars to me is like the one or two episode or a couple episode arc where it's that alien who crashes on the like desert planet or wherever with all the droids, and he's like having to survive in the desert.
Oh, I love those episodes.
I like those episodes.
Oh, hilarious.
So, I just every time I'm scrolling through, I'm like, nope, skip. But even with that, like still, it's just some cheesiness of Star Wars, which is great. Like that's one thing I always like is like, sure, we all love this property, but it's great to be able to like not take it like super, super seriously, like where we can't joke about it or anything like that, because, it's like, hey, you should be able to joke about the things you love, and yeah.
For sure. And Steve, I'm going to throw it over to you, man. So what kind of Star Wars did you experience this week?
Yeah, so there were quite a few things, I think, but the most recent one was earlier today. Me and a couple friends were going through Star Wars Resistance, This is my third time going through the whole show. Like, we've gone through the first 8 episodes with my friends, I think. One of them has seen the show once before all the way through, and the other has never seen it at all. And Resistance is a show that I feel like didn't quite master the overall plot, but what I do love about it is the comedy side of it. Like, I love how people react to Kaz and his antics, and Niku is just so wholesome and hilarious. And my friends who are like I'm watching along with, like, they really love Niku humor. And so it's always interesting to see these shows through other people's eyes, especially if they're watching for the first time. Like, one of our friends was like she hadn't seen the Clone Wars or Rebels or Mandalorian before, so we got to experience her reactions along the way, and just how awesome she thought that it all was. And yeah, so I'm really curious to see where they land on, like, how they feel about the way that Resistance wrapped up, because I have mixed feelings about it, but I know other people have different opinions and whatnot.
Yeah, so Resistance. It's funny you mention that, Steven, because I think we're coming up on a few days before they're having like this Resistance hashtag Resistance Day or something. I don't know if you've seen it on Twitter.
I've heard nothing about this. What's that about?
Okay. I guess the movement's not doing enough.
No,
I
I
guess.
haven't either. I was going to say, Chris, I'm not
There
sure
might be that one guy on Twitter that's trying. The poor guy is trying, and it's not getting anywhere. But supposedly it's like 5 days or something away from when they cancel it or something like that, or when it first aired. I'm not sure which of the two, but
yeah, it'd probably be when it first aired, I think. But
yeah, actually, yeah. So I really like Resistance, especially that first season, and I'm gonna do a lot of comparing Resistance to Bad Batch later on tonight. But I think what Resistance does really well is, first off, it makes it stand itself out from any other Star Wars material with the kind of anime inspired, animation was fantastic. I like the fact that we get so close to those characters, where you are with these characters on this Colossus, and that whole first season is basically just set there. So you have this one kind of environment, but you discover different layers about the environment and how the characters are reacting to the First Order presence. And that first plot story of just that First Order just getting under their skin and just kind of setting the seeds for their overall takeover down the line was something that I really appreciated. And yeah, some of the comedy didn't hit me. I'll be honest. I was like, oh, it's like too slapstick at points. And we got to understand it was on Disney Channel. So they kind of have to play to a certain demographic there. But yeah, Resistance is awesome. Ben, you didn't watch Resistance yet, right?
I got through, like, I don't know, probably 3/4 of the way through the first season, but I still need to finish it up.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoyed from what I've seen so far. Of course, like you said, you have to be aware of the demographic that the show is made for, because I feel like a lot of times, people go into shows, whether it be in Star Wars or anything else, with they try to have like the highest expectation. A big example, you're going into watching Star Wars Resistance, and you're like, this needs to be as good as Game of Thrones or it's bad. But that's the type of standards, like, people try to hold high standards. And it's like, you can't have high standards on a show that is anywhere near the demographic, or even just overall message of the show, comparing it to other great shows, or even like The Mandalorian. You can't compare the Resistance to The Mandalorian. Like, that's two totally different things.
Yeah.
But from what I've seen in terms of the show specifically, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was entertaining, and it wasn't a bad watch at all.
Yeah, and I think Resistance holds a special place in my heart. From New York Comic Con 2018, me and Dominic Jones from the Star Wars Underworld were there, and they had the fireball fighter there. But then we went to this bowling after party after the con closed down, and we both had a shot of Fireball for Team Fireball. We're like, and then it was like the second time, it was like we knew the show was ending, so it was kind of like a goodbye shot or something like that, or that might have been at Celebration 2019 or something like that. But yeah, anyway, so I was like, all right, that automatically makes it better for me just because of the experience of like being with a friend and like having that experience at Comic-Con. So. But moving into the show proper, I just want to remind you guys, if you are listening to this podcast, we do it live on YouTube every Friday, approximately at 9 p.m. Eastern. And of course, if you're watching, you can listen to us on the go, in your car, at the gym, whatever you prefer, by downloading it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and basically wherever podcasts are found. So for this week's releases, we have a lot in the comics realm of things. So, both from Marvel and from IDW. So we have the continuation of the War of the Bounty Hunters epic comic crossover. We had both War of the Bounty Hunters issue number 3 and Star Wars issue number 16. I'm going to ask Steven, are you up to date on the War of the Bounty Hunters comics?
Yeah, I got caught up like just a little bit ago. So I'm all caught up on War of the Bounty Hunters, read this week's stuff. It's a story that, like, it's not all 10 out of 10. Like, I think on average, it's been like 8 out of 10 for me. And, you know, the thing with big event crossover comics is sometimes you get the same scenes over and over every now and then, which, I mean, that's a thing in comics. So it's whatever, but kind of slows down the momentum. But I do really like when they go outside the box. Like, there was that Zuckuss and 4LOM one shot, I think. I thought that was really cool. Is like something I didn't realize I needed. But I'm liking how it's going so far overall. But yeah, like, what have been your guys' feelings about those comics?
Yeah, I've really been enjoying them because, I mean, obviously we're going to be talking about this as one of the stories with the Crimson Reign, but bringing in the Crimson Dawn, bring in Qi'ra, continuing a character from a movie's journey through the Star Wars galaxy in a comic book just blew my mind. Like, they are actually putting the comics on this pedestal now, where it's like, okay, you guys have to pay attention. Like, we're not just like telling just like little in-between stories. We're actually continuing characters' actual stories in another medium. So that's super cool. But I just love all the scum and villainy of Star Wars. That's been like my biggest drawing point. The first thing of Star Wars I remember is being in Jabba's palace and seeing Return of the Jedi, you know, seeing all the criminals and all that. I thought that was so cool, the different aliens and all, bounty hunters. So Empire Strikes Back, of course. So now seeing like an entire run of comics that are just revolving, but also pulling in entities of the Empire, pulling in Luke Skywalker, pulling in Leia and Chewbacca and all these other and even new characters like Valance the Bounty Hunter, you know, having all these guys converge.
Sly Moore even. Yeah,
I mean, holy crap, like Sly Moore, what a minute little obscure character from the prequels, like getting her time to shine in this thing. It's crazy. So yeah, I've really been enjoying it, and this issue is pretty cool because we actually see some pretty neat stuff with Qi'ra and Vader, and Kira's literally dueling Vader in this issue, and we see it from both points because
even doing like maul flips.
Yeah,
like, you could see the training in that.
Somebody literally took that panel, took a screenshot of the Phantom Menace. There's like a classic like Topps card or something. The artist in the War of the Bounty Hunters literally did, I think his name's Luke Ross, literally did the same exact panel with like Obi-Wan going up to attack Darth Maul. It's literally, she's just switching places with Maul. Like, you could tell. And she's saying in the speech bubble, like, oh, my master taught me all about your master and you yourself. So I was like, nobody knows because everybody thinks Dryden Voss was the one in charge. Seems like nobody knows, even at this point, that Maul was really the one that was running the show the whole time, to my knowledge.
Yeah, it seems like Vader recognizes the lineage of her training, so maybe he's like the only one who might guess that maybe it was Maul who trained her. But yeah, it's like I like that we're getting more Crimson Dawn in these comics, and it's like, it's been really great because I know at the beginning of Bad Batch, some people were like, oh, I guess the comics don't matter because they like how they redid that scene from the Kanan comics. but now it's like, no, there's still like really important stuff that happens in the comics that's worth reading.
Yeah, heck yeah. We also got a couple other comics from IDW. We got the High Republic Adventures issue number 7. Have you been keeping up with any of the High Republic comics at all?
So I've read all the stuff that came out before Rising Storm. I think that's the first of the books that have come out this summer, right?
Yeah.
Because I need to read that and everything that's come out since then. Like I know there's like some, like I don't know any spoilers. I just know that some crazy stuff happens in Rising Storm apparently. So I do intend to get back into High Republic sometime in the near future.
Oh yeah. You just go on Twitter and follow like Cavan Scott's Twitter. And like he keeps retweeting like everybody's reactions to the end of Rising Storm, and people are like, "I hate you. You're the worst. This is terrible." And he's just like having so much fun replying to them with just funny stuff. But yeah, the High Republic Adventures. You now in these you're following Court and Farzala, and they're going to now Hutta to kind of like make a truce with the Hutts and stuff like that. And that's the first appearance of Jabba the Hutt is in the High Republic Adventures number 7 in the High Republic. That's the first time we see him in the flesh in the High Republic. So that's really cool. And then Star Wars Adventures issue number 8 from the regular Star Wars Adventures. They tell tales throughout the timeline. They usually have 2 stories in each. There is one that actually relates to your week in Star Wars there, Ben. There's actually a Jedi Fallen Order tie-in to Bogano. Apparently Luke and Leia go there looking for a rebel base between A New Hope and Empire. They end up finding those Bogaranth or whatever those little things are, Boglings, and the stormtroopers arrive there and they're trying to capture them. And then Luke and Leia have to work together to make a compromise to fight off the stormtroopers, and they save the day. And then there's another story that revolves around the Republic and like making a trade agreement and assassins coming in and trying to ruin the deal and all that kind of thing. So yeah, there's lots of comics out this week, so go to your local retailer or go on Comixology to find out for yourself. And of course, I have reviews for most of these up on the channel right now. So we are going to get into it proper. Star Wars Visions just kind of shadow dropped a trailer out of nowhere, and not just one, but 2 trailers, because they put out one in Japanese, and of course they did the English dubbed version. So I'm going to throw it over to Ben. What was your initial reaction, man, to watching the new Star Wars Vision, seeing Star Wars anime for the first time in motion?
Well, my first initial reaction, I was stunned that this trailer even dropped to begin with, just because I was sitting there, I was scrolling through my YouTube subscriptions, and all of a sudden it popped up and it was like, Star Wars Visions trailer posted 35 seconds ago. I was like, wait, what? and I clicked on it, and it was the Japanese one, and I was like, holy smokes, I cannot believe we're getting this. And it was so cool. I love how they had it in Japanese to begin with. Like, I thought that was a really a really good thing to put out there, versus just like releasing in English or something. Like, I like that just because, with animes like, deep history and everything, like I thought that was really, really great. So I watched the trailer in that version, and then I watched the English trailer, and I thought, it was just really good as a whole. Like it definitely piqued my interest for the show. Hey, as John Campy always says, if what's the trailer's job? It's to get you more excited for whatever it is. And this trailer did that. It got me even more excited, and I can't wait for this show to come out. Uh-oh.
Okay, then that's what happens when you flail your arms around and hit the mute button. So we're gonna pick that up. I thought we lost internet for a second there, um, but like I was saying, as far as visions, it took me by storm seeing the animation in motion for the first time, seeing all the different studios working with what they had and showing us first time Star Wars anime. It was so cool. What about you, Steven?
Yeah, the trailer. So I've been excited for Visions from the beginning, like just the idea it's anime style and it looks like there's going to be lots of action and experimentation. But the trailer itself, I wasn't really sure what to make of it. Like, yeah, it gives us glimpses of the animation styles, which is really cool, but it kept cutting really quickly to the point where I wasn't sure like what was going on in certain scenes. And the music felt odd to me. Like it almost felt like a parody of Star Wars music to me. Now, I don't think that was the intention, but it felt like that to me, like something you would kind of find in maybe like a Lego Star Wars story or something. So I was not a huge fan of the editing of the trailer, but I mean, I'm still excited for the show itself. I do have questions about some of the decisions, like the lightsaber umbrella. Like apparently that's based on like a real life weapon, like historical context. But there's also that character who I thought had 6 arms and 6 red lightsabers, but apparently 4 of those are robotic. But still, I kind of wonder if that's maybe too much, like a bit too over the top. So like it looks like they're going really wild with what they can do with Star Wars and just running with it. And so I guess that kind of gives me the expectations that, hey, maybe there will be shorts that I don't like that much, but maybe there will be some shorts that I really like. Like there's 9 different ones. So I'm sure I'm bound to find something that I like. Now what I am wondering about is how long each one is, because I think these are all dropping on the same night, and I live on the Pacific Coast, so I'm wondering, am I gonna be able to stay up and watch all of these like after midnight, or will I have to space them out, or what? Like, I don't know.
Well, from what I've seen anyways, it sounds like they're going to be like 10, 12-minute episodes. So it'll probably be whatever. So like 90 minutes to probably an hour and a half to 2 hours, I would guess.
So kind of like an animated feature film length altogether.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I'm watching the video as we do this right now again, and the ones that really stand out to me are like one of the first openings. It's like there's this great warrior they're talking about, but it's literally like black and white, but it's just so stylistic and it just looks awesome with the motion. Like this, it looks like there's like animated smoke on top of like a 2D rendered anime design, which looked really cool. But so since they're going to be dropping these, are you going to choose to watch it in Japanese or in the English dub version?
Ooh.
Or first, which one first? I'm gonna do both, but it's like, which one first?
Yeah, I think I'll do both. Like I don't watch anime as often as other people I know do, but I know there's some that I prefer watching in Japanese and others where I prefer the dub. But I think for this, I'll probably start with the dub and then watch the Japanese one the next time around. I don't know like how far apart my viewings of these will be, but I do want to check out both versions.
Yeah, I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna watch this with just the subtitles and see how it goes, since I'm gonna be jumping in a deep end since I don't watch any of this kind of stuff. But hey, I think it'll be kind of a cool experience to kind of see how the artist intended this to be viewed. But then on the other hand, and I'm going to read down this awesome list of the English dub actors, because we have so many well-known names in this, and they go per episode. So we're going to start with the duel. You have Brian T. as Ronan. You have Lucy Liu. I heard that one before, as Bandit Leader. You have Jaden Waldman as the village chief. For the next one, you have Tatooine Rhapsody. That has Joseph Gordon-Levitt playing Jay. We know that guy. He's had a lot of cameos in various movies and whatnot, especially in Last Jedi. He played the guy's like something about the beach where they parked on the beach or whatever.
Yeah.
He told them all that. A Star Wars Resistance connection. We have Bobby Moynihan. He's playing somebody named this Geezer. Here's the biggie here. We have Tamora Morrison playing Boba Fett. That's freaking cool. We have Shelby Young. She's done a lot of Star Wars Destiny stuff. She's playing K344. And making his debut in any kind of animation is Mark Thompson as Lan. Now, he is the one that mainly does pretty much all of the audiobooks for Star Wars. So that's cool seeing him make his debut. For the twins, we have another huge actor, Neil Patrick Harris. He's playing Kari. We have Allison Brie as Am. We have Jonathan Lippal as B20N. For the Village Bride, we have Karen Fukuhara. We have, and they are playing F. We have Nicole Sakura as Haru. We have Christopher Sean, another Star Wars Resistance alum, and he is playing Asu. We have Kari Hiroki as Tagawa as Valka. We have Andrew Kishino as Azuma, and Stephanie Shea as Saku. For the Ninth Jedi, we have Kimiko Glenn playing Kar. We have Andrew Kishino as Juro. We have Simu Liu playing Zima, who is actually the lead actor in Marvel's Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, which I've been hearing really, really good things about. So I can't wait to see that in 2 weeks. We also have Masi Oka as Ethan, Greg Chun as Roden. We have Neil Kaplan, the narrator, and Michael Centennicalas, sorry for butchering that name, Henjin, almost through. We have TOB1, Jaden Maldman playing TOB1. We have Kyle Chandler playing Mitaka. For the Elder, we have David Harbour from Stranger Things, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. We have Jordan Fisher playing Dan. We have James Hong playing the Elder. Lap and Ocho. We have Anna Cathar playing Lap. We have Hiromi Damis playing Ocho. We have Paul Nakachuni playing Yasaburo. We have Kyle McCarley playing Imperial Officer. And finally, on the last one, we have it's called Akakari. We have Henry Golding playing Subaki. We have Jimmy Chung playing Misa. We have George Takei. Now, George Takei, he played
George Takei.
Or George Takei, yeah.
Yeah.
What is he playing it? Like, I know he's a big time actor that people are excited
about.
George
Takei played Lot Durd in the Clone Wars season 1. It was in the episodes with the Lerman. But he's most famous for playing Sulu on Star Trek.
Oh, okay. So that would make sense. I've never really watched Star Trek, so there you go. We also have Keon Young as Kamachachi and Lorraine Toussaint as Misago. So there you go. Like some huge names, some people that are big time live action TV stars, some really well known names in the audio space of Star Wars. So it's definitely going to be worth watching the English version just to see what their takes on these original characters are.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's going to be really interesting. Well, like you said, the cast is so diverse. I was shocked that for a project like this, they had, real big name actors in there. Like that was really, really surprising. But it was a good surprise. Yeah, like I think it's gonna be interesting to see. Like, of course, we're all excited about Tamara Morrison. Like, Tamara Morrison's great. Again, I think this is almost turning into like the year of like, or the half year of Boba Fett. But other than him, like George Takei, like it's great seeing him in Star Wars. But I think the biggest one, as you mentioned, Chris, is Mark Thompson. Like having Mark Thompson be involved, like I think that's such a great addition to an actual show, because he's definitely the most talented like audio or audible book reader. So it's a really, really good fit. And it fits Mark Thompson, I think, really well, just because he's a storyteller. So, the Visions is going to be a story. So it'll be cool seeing him involved in his episode. And yeah, it's just going to be so cool. I can't wait. The more we talk about it, the more I'm really excited to watch this.
Yeah, because there's such really cool things with the lightsaber design in this series of shorts, with how sacred the lightsaber is. I know we have that one short that's going to be about the lightsaber smith or whatever it is. They have a specific name. Lightsaber. I think it's Lightsaber Smith. Like she's the daughter of one and traveling like the world trying to find somebody like that. That sounds like a really cool story. Like again, what Steven was saying, like, hey, there's 9 of these things. There's chances are I'm actually not going to like one of these things, and that's okay because I'll just kind of watch it once and just kind of go on. I'm looking at some other ones here. One moment the girl's like has a blaster point at her face, and then she just uses the force to, like blow it right, like force push it right back at the guy. Like, yeah, that one looks awesome. I'm looking forward to that one. But as far as like some things that are a little bit too crazy, like the lightsaber umbrella, I'm like, okay, that might be a little bit too much in my eyes. But again, this is like all a lot of this is exaggeration of what we know as Star Wars. So
Well, see, I think though, see, I don't mind any of that actually, just because of the medium we're dealing with. Like, for so long in Star Wars, Star Wars isn't anime, so this turning into an anime project, we have to view it like from an anime lens, in my opinion. Like, like so a lot of that over the top stuff, that's like natural in animes. Like if you look at things like, I mean, Dragon Ball Z, for example, like that's been on forever, and watch 5 minutes of that show and you talk about over the top. So like, I don't mind the over the top stuff really, just because it fits the medium that it is. But again, for when it comes to general Star Wars fans, it will be interesting to see their reaction, just because they may turn on Disney Plus whenever it comes out and are like, oh, let's check out this new Star Wars show. And then, they get this anime and they might be like, whoa, what is this? But like, for me, I think it's appropriate just because of the medium. And it all comes down to like the storytelling. Like you said, the lightsabers being over the top, some of the like action, it looked like it was over the top, but it just matters how it all plays out, really, in my opinion.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people are telling me, hey, like something might look stupid, like that character that looks like a darn bunny is not one that I gravitate toward at all. But they're like, hey, that could be your favorite character.
I love Jackson.
Oh no!
Like he's not as wacky as I expected him to be, at least in the original Marvel comics. I don't know what they've done with him in the newer comics, but I love him in his original appearance.
He's actually pretty tame. So there's a short story from a certain point of view for Empire Strikes Back.
I've read that. Yeah,
that one's pretty good. And he's in the Star Wars Adventure Annual comics. Like I think they have one coming up in later this year, where he's always a star. And yeah, he's not doing anything over the top. But I'm just like, every time I look at him, I'm like, it's Bugs Bunny in Star Wars. Like it just doesn't rub me the right way. I don't know. But we'll see if that's his like cousin, or if they explain that that's like part of the same species or something. I'm sure probably will have a tie to a Lepi. Yeah, that's believe the species is a Lepi. So
yeah.
But no, this is cool. I mean, I actually did enjoy there's the one part where they show Maz Espa, and it's literally a 3D rendered Maz Espa. That's got to be from the rock opera episode. That looks really cool. How they like kind of sweep in, like the pod race is gonna go on. So good old.
I keep forgetting there's like a rock opera one, which. I mean, that idea excites me a lot.
And then you have people going crazy because, like, a while ago, people weren't sure if this thing is like, going to be part of the continuity, but then they're telling, like, the one creator was like, oh, this is like post Rise of Skywalker. You have these twins. And then somebody like posted some screenshots of Rise of Skywalker, and there was like 2 tubes, and they look like the same 2 tubes in this anime with the twins. I'm like, wait, what? So there's all sorts of speculation. Oh, wow. Going on, we're like, oh my gosh, is this gonna actually happen at some point or something? But but it's weird because it looks like this character is like, oh, she jabs herself with the Kyber crystal in the chest, and then it just like activates the Star Destroyer. So I don't know, like some really wacky stuff going on.
No, that's wild.
Like, what is going on as I'm watching this? But there's some really cool things though. Like the Boba Fett flying. I really like the last shot that they have of It must be that Sabersmith girl. She's like on this really cool looking speeder bike on the ice, like jumps off and then proceeds to have, oh, you know what? It looks like the same kind of lightsaber that Rey, the evil Rey had, where it's like the two that like form the one.
Oh yeah.
And she's like slicing through this speeder bike as it slams past her. I'm like, holy crap. Like that is one I'm really gonna like. Just the action looks great. But yeah, we don't have long to wait. I mean, this thing's coming out in basically under a month now.
Yeah, I think September 22nd, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, just a little over a month. Okay.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, that actually ties in right around the same time they're projecting Mando season 3 to start filming. It's like September 20th is the projected date. Most of like the different like places are talking about actually for Mando season 3. So we'll have visions, and most likely that will be like announced or something right around then, because I'm not sure if you guys saw, but what's his name? Carl Weathers was at a Comic-Con, and he basically said like they're starting filming next month and everything and all that. So we're gonna be getting visions, Mando season 3, like all this in just a few weeks. Like,
yeah, and mind you, we have the Mark Hamill thing, which we'll talk about next week's show. That's coming out this Wednesday.
Yep.
And then we wait basically a couple weeks to Visions. Then we wait like 2 weeks and we get that cool Lego Star Wars special for Halloween. Then you guys assume that they might have another holiday special to kind of fill in November to have some kind of Star Wars content. And then we're right into Book of Boba Fett. So it's like from here on out, we're basically get monthly Star Wars content to a certain degree, even though Bad Batch is done.
I hope they do another Star Wars holiday Lego special. Like, I think we mentioned it before, Chris, on one of our prior episodes. Like, I think there's no reason they shouldn't do like holiday specials every year, just indefinitely. Like, you could do a new holiday special every single December, just indefinitely. Like, and you can change up the time period where it takes place. Like this one we saw was like post episode 9, basically, or kind of.
Yeah.
So like maybe why not like this one, hey, to go right around with the whole Book of Boba Fett stuff, why not do a holiday special with like Django and Kid Boba, like on Camino, like with the Camino ends, and since we just had Bad Batch, like do something like that, like or something like
Lego Bad Batch holiday special.
Yeah, or something like that, just to add into like whatever's going on for the calendar year. Then like maybe next year, like do it Kenobi related or something like that. Like you have a million different ideas for that show. Like they could. I just think they should have a holiday special like every single year.
Yeah, I mean, because as we see, it's a good segue into, we got an announcement for a Marvel Life Day one-shot oversized issue coming out in November. So this is going to be really cool. So we have 4 different authors on here, writers. We have Kay Van Scott and Justine Ireland. Both are known for the High Republic. We have Jodie Hauser, known for her good adaptations of the various movies in Marvel. Star Wars, the movie adaptations. And we have Steve Orlando, who I believe wrote one of the Lando miniseries as well. So that's really cool. They're all different time periods. We're going to have a Buryaga from the High Republic. He's getting his own like little short story. So these writers are writing a single story. So we have 4 total stories in here. It's funny how much Lucasfilm has leaned into Life Day, in general. Like,
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I've consistently said it, and I will keep saying it until it happens. I'll be the start of the new hashtag movement. We need a live action holiday special, Life Day. Like, go all out. Like, get Daisy Ridley, get John Boyega, get Mark Hamill, get them all back, and do a Life Day special with the whole gang, but do it live action. Like,
yeah,
like just do it in the vein. Make it cheesy, make it fun, make it almost spoofy, just like the original one was, because God, the original one was very, very spoofy.
Yeah.
And, so, do it like that. Just have fun with it. Like, lean in, as we said to open the show, lean into the cheesiness. Like, I like it.
Jon Favreau would probably want to do that because, I mean,
Yeah.
heck, in the first couple lines of Mandalorian season 1, episode 1, he's mentioning the guy being late for Life Day. It's like, holy crap! Like people lost their minds. They're like, they made a reference to the holiday special in live action for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, Jon Favreau even said at least once that he'd love to do a new Star Wars holiday special. So he'd be a good person to try that, I think.
Oh my gosh! But I mean, it makes sense. Like, I mean, it falls around. It falls around like Christmas time of year. November is just holidays in general. People are getting excited for. So, like, why not have an official Star Wars holiday? We're padding out the lore so much in all these other directions. It's like, hey, let's take some time to actually figure out what holidays are in Star Wars.
Yeah, like in our world, like there's a lot of holiday stuff that comes out in December, but of course the original holiday special came out mid-November, so it's like you kind of have a bit of a buffer of a few weeks, and it's like a nice space to play in. You could like do those new Star Wars holiday specials, and I think next year is when we're getting the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, like this is a tradition that I'm glad that they're embracing in these different like areas. Like I think it's cool.
It's just, again, it's more content, right? More content to put out.
Yeah.
That people can enjoy, whether or not it's canon or non-canon. People still enjoyed the heck out of the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special. I myself definitely enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, just going all over the different eras, different portals and whatnot, and going back to that. Hey, they could like set it on a different planet each year, like what Ben was saying. Different time, different planet, and you just get a whole nother experience. And it's like you got all the visual effects figured out already. Just kind of replicate that and just change up the voice actors, change up the overall characters, and there you go.
Yeah. What if it's Grogu training with Luke and he misses Din so much, and like at the end of the special, like Din finally arrives and they get to like spend time together for that day.
Oh my gosh, I don't
Like
know.
that, like just to fill in the gap in the wait between Mando seasons.
That
I mean,
would
that could be a
pretty
good. That's actually a good idea. Like that could be that could be very possible now that you say that. Just because you don't have it at the moment, so like it could be a good little buffer. Like so we get the Grogu Din relationship a little bit. That could be really cool, and they could even bring Yoda into it to like lean into the Yoda species hanging out together.
Oh yeah, Force Ghost.
Yep.
Oh man, and we're gonna go into the other comic, the big one that got revealed, miniseries. Thanks to IGN breaking the news here. We have a Qi'ra miniseries spinning out of War of the Bounty Hunters that we were talking about earlier, and this is taking place between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. We have Crimson Reign. It's going to be written by Charles Soule, the architect of the War of the Bounty Hunters and the High Republic series. So, man, oh man, like I'll say my first reaction to this was like kind of deflation a little bit, and I don't know if the disappointment's the right word, because I'm like, we're still in the middle of this series, and now I know the fate of this character, and it's like I get it. Like I think Steven said this, like they have solicitations, like they have to literally like announce this stuff, but it still is like, I know they want to capitalize on like War of the Bounty Hunters like being over in October, and it's like we're going right into the next one. But I wouldn't mind if they like waited another couple of months just to kind of like get the absorption of what happened and be like, okay. I mean, fair enough. People are saying online like, yeah, would they have really killed off Qi'ra in the comics? It's like, I don't know. She's not confirmed to be in anything else. They could have just tied off the character. What are your thoughts first off on that point right there? Like, are you disappointed that they just kind of announced this thing without the current series ending? I'll throw it over to Steven first on this one.
It would have been nice if we had to wait until like a little while after War of the Bounty Hunters wrapped up. But like we've talked about, because comics being comics, we know they announce these things like in advance. But all that being said, knowing that Qi'ra survives, it doesn't bother me that much knowing that while reading War of the Bounty Hunters. Because, I mean, we saw that issue this week where she's fighting Vader, and we know neither of them will die there, but it's still really cool seeing them fight and interact and have this dialogue with each other. And so I don't mind having this knowledge of Crimson Reign, and even that it's like the middle of this Qi'ra trilogy that Charles Soule has described. Like there's got to be Crimson Reign and then some other mini series afterward, I think, which I'm betting will probably be called Crimson Dusk if they decide to like end the whole Crimson Dawn thing.
That is quite clever, but I'm gonna throw it over to Ben. What's your reaction overall on this Crimson Reign miniseries with Qi'ra being announced?
Yeah, I think it's really good. Like they can play off like they've really leaned into, you know, as we mentioned, they're leaning into different other different things, whether it be the holiday special or Grogu or Bad Batch, whatever. Like, you know, they lean into certain properties when they see fit, or like even with Visions, there's that book coming out that's connected to Visions.
Mm-hmm. Right,
so yep. So you have different things they lean into. So with Qi'ra, for example, they know for sure, like it's like the cult following of like the Solo movie. Like there's people that love the character, like me. I mean, I really like her a lot, etc. But like there's people that really like follow all the Solo stuff, like, you know, love Qi'ra. So, you know, they're leaning into it, which is great that, you know, it shows Star Wars is actually listening now, because I feel like for quite a while there, they were definitely not being very doing very well with their PR with their fans, let's just say. So like I think they're starting to listen more, which is nice. And, you know, just to see her character like get the spotlight more, because War of the Bounty Hunters is nice and all, but you have all these other, I mean, like you just said, she's fighting Darth Vader. Like, I mean, really, like, you know, people are like, of course you're excited to see Qi'ra in that scene, but everyone's excited because it's like, whoa, it's Darth Vader. Like, you know, so it's great that she's getting her own spotlight per se, but also, you know, as you said, for people that are really, really following the War of the Bounty Hunters comic line, it could be like, man, you know, why would you do that? But then again, I've always had the thinking, I think they're doing a lot of these Qi'ra related things. Like, unfortunately, I think they are doing a lot of these projects because I think it's almost them showing their hand that, like, hey, we're not going to do a Solo 2. Like, you're going to get Qi'ra content. You know, you're going to get all this extra content, like, related to her. Like, but I think that's basically what it's going to be. But I do think with Qi'ra's overall, like, arc, like, with the War of the Bounty Hunters comic, you know, as we said, it's ending in October. Like, I think there's a chance we could get her in the Book of Boba Fett, just because, you know, it fits the timeline. You know, you have Robert Rodriguez like saying the show's all killer, not filler. Like, what's that mean? Like, you know, so is Boba gonna be like battling with the other?
Maybe someone misheard, and he actually said it's all Qi'ra, no filler.
Hey, there we go. So you know, I think it's gonna end up leading to that potentially, because, you know, like last year, like, you know, we had Luke basically blow the doors off like the Mandalorian show just because it was such a big character appearance. Like, just imagine if we would get the Qi'ra appearance like in this show. I mean, you know, so I think a lot of these comics and things are leading. It's just the early stages that are leading to her making an appearance in one of these shows, like between episode 6 and 7.
Yeah, Steven, now we were having a conversation, you know, via message, and we both literally came to the same exact conclusion. It's like, do we think she's going to be in Bad Batch Book of Boba Fett season 1? Maybe not, but they could at least like tease that Crimson Dawn is going to be a force to be reckoned with. So we're like, what could they do? Like, hey, you know, what happens if they show the Crimson Dawn symbol, like the last scene of the show, and it's like, we know who's coming along. So I think, like, and this is, especially if there's going to be a
it'd
book
be
of Boba
very
Fett season 2.
subtle and tasteful. Yeah.
Yeah, because the way they reveal it in Solo, like rubbing the dust off the thing, and there's a symbol there, and they go over the history of the blood and it's shed and everything revolving around Crimson Dawn. So, and Steven, you mentioned this about the whole trilogy. That was really funny because I was just looking at Charles Soule's Twitter, and this wasn't in the announcement on IGN, but they're like, he's like literally tweeted out like, "Oh, it's the second part of the trilogy." I'm like, "Wait, what? There's a trilogy?" Yeah, yeah. It's like he just answered like some guy in his tweet reply. I'm like, "Wait, what?" So I think that's something to be
when I
excited
first
about.
read that, I thought maybe he meant Solo, a Star Wars story, was the first part of
Yeah.
the trilogy, and then War of the Bounty Hunters was part 2, and Crimson Reign was part 3. But then we'll get it again. It was like, oh, he means Crimson Reign is part 2 of this comic trilogy.
Yeah, so that's really cool because the gears start spinning. It's like, is this actually going to be? Because like when they announced Crimson Reign, I'm like, oh, is this going to be a post Return of the Jedi? No, because obviously Vader's on the cover, Palpatine's on the cover, and a variant cover. But I think going forward, maybe it would be interesting to at least see like how Crimson Dawn falls in the power struggle when the Hutts are defeated, when the Empire's not there. Who's picking up the pieces? Because we don't really quite know in the Mandalorian. We don't know that they're around at that point. But what happens like directly after Return of the Jedi?
Yeah, like where's Rada the Hutt in all this? Like have Rada go up against Crimson Dawn or something.
Oh my gosh! Well, looking at how old like Hutt's age, like we mentioned, Jabba the Hutt is in High Republic. Like, how long does it take a Hutt to even reach puberty?
Yeah,
I guess
I don't know.
because that thing is like an infant. He might only be like 10 years old in like human years or whatever by that time. Who knows?
Or maybe it's like teenage Rada, like teenage Groot. I don't know.
But I do want to take a moment to go ahead and check out the cover, the official cover for Crimson Dawn, and I'm putting this in the chat for you guys to kind of look it over. We're gonna break this down right now. But looking at this cover here, we have quite a few interesting things. And the one thing we haven't mentioned yet is if you look closely, there is a character named Ren from the Rise of Kylo Ren comic miniseries, which is basically, how Ben Solo becomes Kylo Ren. Charles Soule also wrote that story, and it has the Knights of Ren. It has Ren, who is the master of the Knights of Ren, and then basically he has Kylo Ren's blade, essentially. And again, Charles Soule confirmed that, yes, the Knights of Ren will be in this Crimson Reign story. So that immediately gets the gears turning. Like, are they in cahoots with Crimson Dawn? Are they working with Crimson Dawn? Are they just like another criminal syndicate that's kind of out there in the periphery somewhere? But it's just really cool how we're kind of like, and Charles Soule always does this with his comics. Like he did that with the Mask of Monin, how that appeared in the Lando miniseries, and it appeared in his Darth Vader run. So he has a really great way of like tying together things, but tying together specifically the sequel trilogy with the original trilogy in this comic. How do you feel about that, Steven?
I think it's interesting. I don't know how. I feel like I don't know how I'll feel about it until I see how it plays out. Because there are like some things in the Rise of Kylo Ren comic that I was kind of iffy about, but with these connections, it could potentially enhance the overall lore of the Knights of Ren for me. Because I mean, it's really crazy, right? Just throw Ren into this story like this early in the timeline, and it's like, how much of like this Qi'ra stuff is connected to what eventually happens with Ben Solo? Like, it's really weird because it's like Han's former love interest, and then you got her, like potentially her interacting with Ren, and then that stuff happening with Han's son. It's like, I'm really curious to see how this plays out. Like, I honestly thought that Ren was just a one-off character and we wouldn't really see much more of him, at least for like a long time, like several years after that comic miniseries. So I'm really surprised to see him in this one.
Yeah, I did not catch it at first. Like, I think I mentioned it, and you're like, you just noticed that. I'm like, well, I didn't even think to expect to see him in there. I just thought it was some random character looking at my tiny pic on the phone, and then I'm like, Oh crap!
Yeah, I
Somebody
mean, lots
mentioned
of
it.
Star Wars characters have masks anyway, so
Yeah, yeah. It's cool. We see Death Stick in there, which, the origins of Death Stick is
yeah.
a very interesting thing. She comes from a mobile game in 2015, Star Wars Uprising, when like there's this blockade around Bespin and you're playing this no-name character and she's like one of your quest givers, if you will, like gives you missions and stuff like that. So that's coming a long way, and she's been in more
Oh,
of the
that's a
Bounty
deep
Hunters.
cut. That's really
It's
impressive.
I love how they put her in War of the Bounty Hunters. It is just so fun. But we also see in the very bottom there, we see like some dude that I literally don't know who that is. I don't know if you've ever seen that person, Steven.
He looks so. I've never played the Halo games, but he looks like Master Chief, kind of, doesn't he?
What do you think about that? Do you agree with that?
Give me 1 second. Let me. Yeah, I was gonna say you kind of. I don't know. Like, I've never seen anything really like that in Star Wars, like, or characters like that I can think of in the Star Wars universe, anyways.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This is it'll definitely be interesting to see how this all plays out. And like you were saying, the potential like connections to like how it all connects to Qi'ra or like Qi'ra to possibly Ben and Han and all that. Like it'll be interesting because I'm sure it's gonna connect at some point. Like that's the whole point of canon. Like they want to connect all this stuff. So I think it only makes sense that it'll eventually, like, Qi'ra will eventually connect to potentially with what happened with Ben and all that.
One final big reveal in this cover, which is funny because we've never really gotten like this many reveals in a damn comic book cover. Really, it's been pretty straightforward. And mind you, a lot of times the comic covers can be completely not related at all to the content within the cover. But I'm thinking since this is like issue number 1, like this stuff is going to be in there. They're not going to show Ren for no reason, but the ships in the background are TIE defenders, and we know if we've watched Star Wars Rebels, by the end of season 4, like Thrawn's program is turned down and replaced by basically the Death Star for Tarkin. Like they're like, yeah, we're not going to waste our resources. Like all along, Thrawn could have been the victor for the Empire because they could have had these better fighters in Rebellion and not have more resources around to have more of these fighters rather than one thing that gets destroyed. So I think that's really cool because I think in post Return of the Jedi Legends, I think there's been a lot of TIE defenders, but so far in canon, we assumed that with the end of Rebels, that was the end of the TIE defender, and there's such like a sequel type of ship in Legends with like Heir of the Empire, I guess, and stuff like that. So that gets me very excited as like a ship fighter fanatic. Like, yes, we're gonna see these things maybe branch into like that post Return of the Jedi era, maybe.
Yeah, because when Star Wars Rebels had these TIE defenders and then the show ended, we kind of figured that was just the end of them. They're just like a neat little cameo thing in that show. But this feels like another instance of the legacy of Star Wars Rebels continuing in all these other projects. And I think, yeah, like there may be a point like having these and Crimson Reign might be foreshadowing that there could be plans to have them in whatever the live action heir to the Empire ends up being with these live action TV shows. Like maybe like they'll be part of Thrawn's forces, and it will be really cool to see these in live action. So it's really cool that they're doing things like this, like bringing characters and ships and aliens from all these different things and mixing them together so it all feels like the same world and like it's all been there like the whole time, that type of thing.
That's right. I think you explained it very well about total continuity and canon in a nutshell. Like making this stuff feel like it's been there, making these stories enhance stories that we've already read without taking anything away from them. And talking about Thrawn, you mentioned Heir of the Empire. I'm going to segue into the next story here. And this is spoilers for anybody for the Bad Batch. This is officially where our Bad Batch full season 1 spoilers, everything that happened, we're going to be talking about. So if you haven't watched it, make sure you pause this and watch it later. We had some really interesting things revealed in the concept art for the final episode of the Bad Batch. And people are already guessing that this could be the case, like before we seen this. but it's basically coming true because it's literally listed on there. We have the location in that last scene with Nalase. We didn't know what that location was. Well, it turns out that it actually is Wayland and Mount Tantus, and you're probably like me and had to Wikipedia it because I haven't read that book since I was like 10. So forgive me if I don't know that knowledge off the top of my head, all right? But I ended up looking it up, and that is indeed like the place where Palpatine like hid a lot of very interesting things, including a clone of Jorah Sibath and all this crazy nonsense. So that is so cool.
Yeah, and now people are wondering like who could be like the canon version of Jorus Sabaoth. Like, are they gonna use the same character or a different character we're familiar with in his place? Like, it's like it really fuels a lot of speculation. And yeah, like I think it's kind of funny that we learned this from concept art, because they very well could have just told Nalase, "Welcome to Mount Tantus," and that would have made lots of people's jaws drop. But instead, it's like they just put it in the concept art casually for people to look at, and it's just there. Like, it's a real weird way to figure this out.
Yeah, because with the finale last week, I was saying about lack of like a big moment, or maybe not every Star Wars story needs it, but like I feel like the finale needed a little something. And if they would have straight up told us that, I think that could have been that little something that might have boosted up my score a little bit on the episode. Like, all right, like I'm excited for season 2 because now we're going to get more of this information. And they did say in an interview on the Star Wars show, like, we're going to learn a lot more about that place and what's going on there. So it's like, yeah, if they would have led with that, it would have been like, all right, cool. Like, oh, this is a Heir of the Empire kind of connection and all that. So what are your reactions on that, Ben? I know you're a big fan of the legends and all that. So what was your reaction?
Oh yeah, I've read pretty much almost all the Legends material.
Nice.
But yeah, specifically to this, I do think that was a major misstep. Again, we will get into what our thoughts are on the show, but if they would have said like "Welcome to Mount Tantus" or anything like that to end it, I guarantee you, all we would have seen on Twitter trending in the morning and that day was like, "Oh, heir to the Empire, Thrawn, Mountain Emperor, blah 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 blah." Like, that's all that people would have been talking about. But on the flip side of it, you have people like, highly criticizing the show. So like, if you just, again, it goes back to our whole thing, like lean into it, Star Wars, like put something like that in there, give the proverbial like dogs that are us fans, throw them a bone. Like that's not, you don't have to throw them the whole bag of treats, like just one treat. And Star Wars just, like, I think they should have done that. But I do think this is just confirming more and more and more that the whole Mandoverse is just a rough adapted Heir to the Empire. Like, that's, I think, what we're leading up to. Like all of these projects, like sure, obviously Bad Batch isn't in the Mandoverse timeline, but still, like, I think this, obviously, being canon, it connects, but a lot of the things that we're seeing, they're just rough adapting Heir to the Empire, because why wouldn't they? It's it's arguably the most popular Star Wars book ever, like canon or not canon. So like, why would you not adapt that one way or another? And I mean, of course, the biggest like indicator of that all is bringing Thrawn back into canon. Like, why would you do that? Why are you going to just bring him back as like a little Imperial officer? Like, of course not. So, and as we mentioned, like with the TIE Defender things, I was thinking it before you even said it, Steven. Like, I was like, man, I bet you Thrawn's big thing that he's going to be doing is building like a whole fleet of TIE Defenders or something for like the Mandoverse timeline era. Like, I think there's a really good chance that'll be Thrawn's big bad weapon versus like, the normal like Star Killer bases or Death Stars or things like that. I think that's what Thrawn's plan will be. And again, it's just showing like we're getting more and more connections. And then of course you have the potential like who's going to be the Sabaoth? Like, you don't have to obviously name him that. Like, you could go that route. And then, you know, if you want to get really, really out there on wild speculation, what if they just straight up do like the Luke clone thing from Dark Empire?
What if we already saw him in
Mando?
Yeah, what if that was him at the end of season 2?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
Luke
crap.
Skywalker from The Last Command. Yeah.
What if,
oh my god!
Because here's the thing to think about it this way. Like, what if that was Luke, and what if we end up getting the actual real Luke? I don't know, popping up in Mando season 3, being like, that wasn't me, or you know, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because we've seen his hand on Exegol in the Darth Vader comics, supposedly. So, I mean, it's there.
Exactly. So you have those potential things. And then on top of it, I think, like, broader picture, like, we are getting really into speculation territory here. But what if, but the thing is, if you think about it, like, you know, to help, you know, give or take whatever people feel about, like, Luke's arc in the sequel trilogy, of course, it was very mixed. But my big thing with Luke is, if you have the way you can kind of like fix it for everybody, or for a lot of the people that criticize what happens with him, like, what you need to do is basically build him up in this time period, and, you know, basically get him to where he's almost like egotistical or like arrogant, like, yeah, I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm the legend, blah, blah, blah. But what if Luke, like, to knock him off like the legend thing, what if we get a clone? What if we get the clone Luke, and, you know, he does something and kills someone Luke knows, like in this whole Mando timeline? Like, we get something like that. Like, if we get a wild Luke on Luke fight, like, fans would go crazy. But again, it just all falls down to the overall execution. Like, it sounds wild, us just spitballing ideas here on the podcast, but if they formulate a good enough plan, it can work. It just all comes down to execution.
Yeah, and then that's like the whole beautiful part about the solution to the CGI is like, oh yeah, you know, the Luke is the reason why he looks like that is because he actually is like,
I was thinking
it's a
that,
clone. Like, that's they're not a perfect. They can't ever make a perfect clone exactly, so that's why he looks that way. As far as like force sensitive, like, they can't make a force sensitive clone be perfect, so that's how the audience could tell, like, oh, there's something a little off about that. And then they're like, no, we have Sebastian Stan actually playing Luke Skywalker for real, or something like that.
Right. And like, I was thinking that, and yeah, I would love if that happened, like, the more I think about it, because the CGI did look off to me. But I mean, here's another wild theory, and that I'll say, and then we can move on. But like, what if instead of Jorus Sabaoth, it's a Mace Windu clone played by Samuel L. Jackson? Like the idea of Mace Windu still being alive is such an eye roller of a theory to me. But if they do mad Mace Windu clone instead, like, do that instead of like bringing him back to life, like, I think I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, because I don't know much about George Sabat. Does anybody like know his personality? Was he like kind of crazy? Was he like mad and all that?
Well,
yeah, the clone was kind of insane, and the original Jedi he was cloned from was kind of out there and strict, from what I remember. I could be remembering wrong, but yeah, sorry to cut you off, Ben.
Oh no, I was gonna say, yeah, it's basically that. Like, it's kind of like a crazy dark Jedi. So, like, you know, in our whole like theory here, like, you know, you could have potentially like Den, Luke, and the heroes versus Thrawn and like Jorus Sabaoth, or, you know, whoever, like, whatever they would name him. Like, there, you know, that could be your answer. Because my thing when it comes to Star Wars, or anything really, I mean, look at like Justice League, for example, or whatever thing you introduce, you always have to have the counterbalance to counterbalance it. So, like, you know, obviously Thrawn is like a huge tactician, etc., but he's not a force user. And then other than him, like, obviously you have like the Imperial officers, like Giancarlo Esposito and all those characters. But other than them, they don't have a Force user on their side. Like the good guys have Ahsoka, they have Luke, and they have Grogu. I mean, I guess like, so, you have 3 Force users on the good side. Like, how are you going to counterbalance that? Like, I feel like we're going to have to get some type of a dark side user at some point.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to go that route, possibly. Like, it all just depends on, to me, it's, as I said before, like, I feel like Star Wars has been like kind of shaky on their communication and stuff with fans over the past few years, but they're getting better at it. And maybe them, like, maybe they were like, hey, we can't fully adapt Heir to Empire for obvious reasons, but why not try to take away as much as we can from it and just rough adapt it to what we have and see how it fits. And I think that's what's happening here. And I think, honestly, I think that is going to be potentially, I think that could be where the Rogue Squadron movie is as well. I think it could be in this timeline.
Oh, okay.
As well, to go along with it. I think a lot of these movies like we have coming up, like the because they, like the Rogue Squadron movie, for example, it's like a generation of new pilots, blah 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 blah, but it doesn't say what the timeline is. What if the generation of new pilots is right after Episode 6 and they're training them because all of that, like, we have that. Like, you could have the Rogue Squadron movie, then like the Taika Waititi movie, and then the Kevin Feige project. Like, so it could be kind of like a rough, not trilogy, but timeline of movies. Like, I'm thinking we could potentially be in that type of a situation, but again, who knows?
Yeah. And just to kind of end this, Sabaoth, or however you pronounce it.
Yeah, it's Sabaoth. Timothy Zahn said the pronunciation, the annotations of the 20th anniversary Heir to the Empire book. But
nice. Okay, so back then, obviously the prequels weren't even conceived yet, so there wasn't really a lot of Jedi to pull from. So I don't expect Sabaoth to really be in there if they have like hundreds of Jedi they can throw in from the prequels, whatever. So yeah, I mean, in that regard, Mace Windu could be a good choice, and he's a mad guy to begin with. So yeah, that would make a lot of sense. But and also what Ben you just said about the Rogue Squadron makes a lot of sense. Like, they could almost like do what Marvel's doing right now, Disney Plus series, like folding into naturally the movies and in and out, interweaving like that. Like, they might want a piece of that kind of storytelling, since it's been working pretty well for Marvel so far. Although we haven't really seen a direct repercussions with like the Doctor Strange movie, possibly Spider-Man having big connections to Loki. So we'll just have to wait and see with that. But we had so much fun speculating. But we are here to talk about season 1. What we've seen so far, how we feel about it so far. So I'm going to go around to everybody. Just first impressions, just like a good minute impression of, episodes 1 through 16. I'll start with Ben.
My overall view on the show is it was hit and miss. It was literally just like going through a mount or a valley of mountains up and down throughout the whole season, because there were so many highs and lows, and it just, I don't know. Overall, like, I honestly would have to say the show was disappointing for what it turned out to be.
All right. I'm going to throw it over to Steven.
So I enjoyed much of the show. Like, I think Omega has been my favorite character out of the whole squad. I think that there's been some great dialogue between her and the other squad members. I feel that they need to still develop Tech and Echo a lot more. So there are maybe a few episodes that didn't really do much for me, and the last 2 were part of that as well. So, like, I enjoyed much of the show, but when it wraps up and I look back on it as a whole, I think it didn't get as much done as I expected it might. Like, I don't know if the Omega mystery has wrapped up or not. It's really vague, and I don't really know what the direction of the show is for season 2. Like I thought maybe the finale would give us a better idea, but it feels like it went 2 steps forward, 1 step back. They're kind of back where they began with the whole Crosshair thing. So it was one of those endings where it didn't really hype me up for season 2, like other Star Wars shows season finales have with like the ends of their seasons. So this felt very out of the norm for me, the way this left me feeling kind of cold. Like there's some good stuff. I just wish I felt more hyped for what's coming up. But yeah, that's my overall thoughts on season 1.
Great. Yeah, both of you voiced your opinions pretty well, because they are pretty much in line with my initial impressions going into this discussion. Like we started off with a bang, like this is the Bad Batch. This is a series I kind of always wanted, right? Getting that transition from the Grand Galactic Republic to the Empire. And how does that look like? How do the clones transition into the Stormtroopers? What is the phasing out of the clones and bringing in of actual recruits into the Empire? What's Order 66 looking like, when they're looking back on it? Just a lot of cool things. And while we did get a lot of those cool answers to those questions, we ended up, I think, Steven, you said it pretty well there. It's like we ended up at the end of the season kind of in a circle almost. Like when you look at it in a vacuum, like we had some good momentum going forward, but then we kind of end up at the same place where it's like Crosshair, he's still out on his own. And you have the Bad Batch. They're all still together. They're all alive. Nobody's hurt or nothing. Everybody's just kind of where they all started. So with that, I'm kind of lukewarm on this first season as well, which is a disappointment. As I said, I'll compare this to like Star Wars Resistance, Star Wars Clone Wars. Like we got lots of like really cool cliffhangers where it's like, I need season 2 right now. And I just didn't really feel like that. But let's start by talking about breaking down the characters. You mentioned one of them, Steven, Omega. Now, Omega started off as a character that was very mysterious. Now, we learned a lot about her, how she is the sister of Boba Fett. But I think they did leave some things that they didn't really answer or acknowledge after the first couple episodes. And one of them is like, I think we were on the verge, all of us thinking, hey, maybe she is force sensitive, like, or at least very telepathic, because she's kind of knows what Crosshair is going to do before that, and is quick to like use guns well and all that without any proper training. So what do you guys feel about the character of Omega in general? And I'll start with Ben on this one.
Well, as I've said throughout the whole season, basically since she first got introduced, she was my favorite character for the entire season as a whole. I thought she was great, except halfway through the season, like the first, 7 or 8 episodes, her character arc was going up for me, I would say. And then we hit a lull where it was like, holy smokes, we're getting into like really repetitive storytelling, like Omega captured, Omega not learning her lesson, Omega not learning her lesson, Omega not learning her lesson. Like, but like, so we have that, but then in the same breath, like the one episode ends with her, like beating all those guys in Sabak and stuff. Like, so she's really good at strategy, but then she's still not learning her lesson. So it's like, what is going on here? I mean, it ended up resolving itself, like, as you said, lukewarm. Like, when the robot was out in the AZ was out in the water, like Omega was so quick to want to save him, and it's like you should have learned a lesson by now. So I don't know. Her character started getting really sloppy for me in the second half of the season, I would say. But overall, her character was still my favorite one of the show. And it's just going to be interesting to see how they handle her in season 2. Just because will her character keep progressing, or will her character be the what's the term in movies, like the thing that progresses the plot?
MacGuffin?
Like the MacGuffin.
The MacGuffin.
Yeah. Will she be the MacGuffin of the show, where like it'll be just her getting captured? Like, will it be along those storylines? Because I feel like we're gonna get something like, Nalase is gonna interact with her at some point. So like, are we gonna get into repetitive storytelling where it's going to be that, like, it's going to be more repetitive stuff, or will her character actually grow? Like, that's a big thing. And for me, also, as you mentioned, we all were thinking potentially early on maybe she's force sensitive and things like that. But I was able to I was able to be fine with it after the fact, like knowing she wasn't, just because her reflexes are so good, just because presumably, she inherited that type of a trait from Django. I mean, Django had killed Jedi before and stuff, and he's not force sensitive. He's just, a quick draw, basically. I mean, we see him kill that one Jedi in the Geonosis arena.
Oh yeah, Coleman Trebor. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was saying, you see how quick he is, and I mean, Django doesn't even really flinch. So so obviously, like, Omega has natural talent, but like, were her skills actually refined enough to be using it? Like, I don't know. It's definitely interesting to see with her how, or like, where her character is going to end up. But again, overall, where, just like the season, her character ended up being lukewarm, because I feel like we still got to the same point. But then again, I guess, to play devil's advocate to myself, are we judge? This is a question for both of you and for any of our listeners. Are we judging Omega too harshly as an adult clone, like as an adult soldier? Because also, we have to remember, she is a kid. Like, a kid will, I mean, how old is she? 13, 14? So like, or 12, 13, whatever. Like she's still a kid. So like, a kid in that situation, like, I was kind of iffy when Crosshair gave her AZ at the end, but, of course a kid's going to be excited. Like, that's finding your dog, after it going missing. Like, so are we judging her too harshly because she's a kid and we're looking at her as an adult? Like, are we projecting that she should be an adult when she's actually not an adult?
That's very fair. I do like that stance, because I think we do take ourselves out of it and just imagine her as just like any of the other Bad Batch, because especially we know that she's older than the Bad Batch. She's not, she doesn't age fast like them, like twice the speed or whatever it may be. So it's easy for us to kind of make that assumption. But I think you are right. We have to give her time. We've gotten other Star Wars stories, but like, the characters definitely ranged a little bit older. I mean, Ezra, I would assume he's like 15 or 16 at the beginning of Rebels. I would think she's probably only like
14. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say she's probably more like 11 or 12.
Yeah.
I would in the first episode, I think Tech says that she's in adolescence, so she could be like at least 10, maybe preteen or 13 or something.
Yeah, so about Omega with you, Steven. How are you feeling about her progression, I guess, from episode 1 to episode 16?
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with Ben on how her progression felt. Like, there was a lot of momentum up until the episode where she's fighting off like Cad Bane, and Fennec Shand was there as well. And like, that was a really great episode. And a couple people I know were saying that it was really weird how their favorite episodes of the Bad Batch are the ones that don't feature the Bad Batch that much. Like, there's that episode and the Hera episode, like the part 1 of that. But yeah, I think that episode where it's just Omega fending for herself against those bounty hunters, like, after that, I think they lost momentum with her arc. And then it was like, well, what exactly do they want to do with Omega? Like in the finale, or the part 1 of it, at least, when she casually says that she's older than them, she saw them in the lab. It's like, I still have questions about that. Like, how much older than them are you? And it feels like just an afterthought. Like, it's just there. And I'm sure there are probably big plans for Omega and her evolution. I'm just not sure what to expect about how it'll be executed.
And let's shift over to the Bad Batch now. The Bad Batch as a whole, the namesake of this series. Now, after watching this first season, do you agree that it was a good idea to like make the Bad Batch the focal point of an adventure story through the dark times? Do you think like what we got for the first season was good enough to be like, okay, I can understand why they chose these characters to follow rather than any other characters that survived like Order 66?
I feel like they chose good characters for this, but didn't invest enough in about half of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I still feel like there's a lot we could have gotten from Echo. Like, I'm hoping that in season 2 we see kind of like his path diverging from the Batch. Like maybe an episode where he and Tech are like stranded alone together. They have to like get something accomplished, and then Echo is like, I'm gonna seize my opportunity to join Rex and whatever he's doing. Like I do love the clones' perspectives. I just feel like there could have been more for a couple of these characters, and even Crosshair felt all over the place to me. Like I'm not really sure what he wants most of the time. Like I feel like there's more they could do. Like they could expand even further with the clones' perspectives by, you know, doing like a spiritual sequel to Republic Commando and like having Delta Squad go up against the Bad Batch even, and like just like they could have like a debate or whatever and see what happens with all those characters.
Ben, I know you were chuckling at the Delta Squad because we were also talking about that a couple episodes.
Yep.
Do you agree with that sentiment from Steven?
Yeah, I think with the different characters, I think the reason why they started feeling the way they did is just because we were getting so many almost pointless episodes. Because in my opinion, it doesn't matter whether it's the Bad Batch or any show. As long as you tell a good story, you can make any character work. So, like with the Bad Batch, I think the criticisms that fall on the characters really lie on the creators of the show, because, you know, you've had so many episodes where it was like, oh, another Sid mission, oh, another Sid mission, oh, another Sid mission. So it's like, what is going on here? Like I said before, I was half expecting Sid to show up in the finale. So like, you know, you have stuff like that totally derails the characters. And then like, so do just go by character basis, like Hunter, I think Hunter was done pretty well for the most part for like what his, you know, he was kind of learning to be like an older brother figure. Like I think they did really well with him. You know, Wrecker played his role as a good, you know, kind of comedic relief, even though early on, you know, we talked about how he was getting a little bit much in the first couple episodes. And then the problem I have with the Bad Batch is specifically Tech and Echo, because I think their characters are totally redundant. Like they're literally basically the same character. Like, you know, they have the same skill set. Like, you know, what made Delta Squad unique, for example, was like everybody had a different skill set and, you know, it all contributed to the team. But Tech and Echo, that's why for the longest time I thought Echo was going to die because, you know, he's an older character, nostalgia, etc. I thought he was going to be the one to get taken out eventually just because he's redundant with Tech. So, you know, you have that situation, and, you know, those two characters, I feel like Tech and Echo were really just like you know, they were literally the 3PO and R2, you know, they were afterthoughts.
Yes.
like that's what they were. They were afterthoughts. And then Crosshair, the big issue with him was he started out really cool, like especially in the episode where he gunned down his own troop. Like I was like, whoa, we're gonna get a hardcore villain here. Like that, you know, I remember us saying on our episode reviewing it, Chris, we were like, man, they went there, like having him, you know, shoot his own guy. Like, okay, this is actually gonna get pretty gritty. And then we start going on Sid missions and things go sideways. So like, you know, you have Crosshair start out so good, and then, you know, we find out in like whatever it was, like episode 11 or 12, Crosshair just now is asking to be able to hunt the Bad Batch. It's like, wait, you know, I feel like it was just assumed by everybody. Like, I mean, maybe wrongfully assuming, but I feel like everybody just kind of assumed, oh, he's on the bad guys now. Like he's hunting the Bad Batch, like in the background. Like I remember us like talking about that as a potential story threat early on in the first couple episodes. Like, hey, Crosshair is probably hunting these guys in the background, and then it's like episode 11 or whatever, 12 rolls around, and he's like, "Can I hunt them?" And then they're like, "Permission granted." And it's like, wait, what? Like, I thought he's been hunting them this entire season. So like, I feel like they kind of botched his character with not using him properly, and then by the end of it, we still get to the same place as you mentioned earlier, Steve. Like, we literally got to the same place we got in the beginning of the season. Like, the Bad Batch is still the Bad Batch. Crosshair is even without the chip. Crosshair is still stuck on the Empire. Like, so where did they go with Crosshair? Like, I feel like the only characters, in my opinion, that actually progressed were Omega slightly, and then Hunter, I feel like, did a pretty good job. But then again, I guess I'm just countering my own self by saying that, because right after Omega gets captured by Cad Bane and they rescue her, like I think it's the very next episode is where he leaves Omega with Sid, and they go off planet for that mission with like the Senator or whatever. Like, so like, why, with Hunter being like the lead of the squad, like, Omega is so valuable, and you're like, let's just leave her with this sketchy bar owner. Like, so I don't know. I feel like the characters were really lukewarm at best, like on their progression. Like, Omega was pretty good, Hunter was okay, but Wrecker was what he was. Tech and Echo were redundant, and Crosshair ended up the same place he was.
Now that you're mentioning all the things with Omega being left behind, it was like making immediate parallels to the Mandalorian. And that's the problems I have with season 2. It's like, why are you going to leave Grogu out there when the speeder bike is out there on Tatooine? Like, somebody's going to get Grogu. Or why would you leave Grogu with just like 2 frog people? Or why would you leave Grogu with like this maintenance person on Tatooine at a docking bay? And then I started thinking like, oh, wow, it's like the same thing. But then also the fact, and Mandalorian actually accomplished this. So another thing, kind of going away from the character discussion for a second here, it's just like how formulaic the season was. Like, a lot of these episodes where they're like on a mission, then it goes back on the ship, and that's the end of the episode. Like, it starts becoming very formulaic, where it's like you can kind of understand like how the episode's going to start, how it's going to end, and it just kind of rinses and repeats. But yeah, I think you guys summed it up pretty well about my thoughts as well, about like, hey, like, certain characters evolved. Wrecker, the guy that I really just didn't think I would like at all out of all the characters. Like, we thought he was pretty annoying in the first ones. But then we see the other side of him, and like how he cares for Omega and treats her like, the younger sister, and he helps make this like cool like little room for her to feel at home, and things like that. And seeing the chips get removed so early on in the series, I thought was going to make room for like bigger things to tell with this squad. And ever since that middle episode on Braca where they got it removed, I feel like that's where the Bad Batch like started to slowly stop developing, because Hunter kind of aggravates me, because he seems like people like, he just joined the rebellion already. Like, why are you like encountering all these people, these sympathizers like Rex and the sisters and whatnot, and yet he's finding out like bad things about this underworld, that it's not safe dealing with these kind of people, but he's still like set in his ways. Like, no, I'm gonna still like do my thing, like no matter how many like bad moments and situations he gets stuck in. So he's got kind of a thick skull, because he's been through all these events, and he's like still not like reacting like a normal person would to these things.
Oh yeah, just to jump in there, like, not to pile on Hunter anymore, but to pile on Hunter a little more. Okay, so we're going through all these different events and things, and I was just talking to my good friend about it literally just a few hours ago. Why did Hunter not get Omega armor? Like, you're going through all these bad events, all these things, and she's the only one. The rest of them are wearing all this protective gear, getting blasted and everything, and Omega's running around in street clothes. Like, what are you doing? Like,
not even street clothes. She's wearing like Camino and garb. Yeah. Like, anybody can point her out in the street and like, oh, she's worth a lot of money to us. Like,
yeah, she's from Camino. So like like I thought that was such a weird thing. Like you're going on all these dangerous missions and things, and like even when the episode where she's like using the bow and stuff, like that episode, like that's an episode like really involving combat, and you're having Omega wear her Camino gear. Like what? Like I don't know. I just thought that was a bad thing with like on Hunter, like being like the leader of the squad and like so protective over her. And then it's like, well, nah, she doesn't need armor. She's good. Like I don't know.
Maybe her genetic enhancement or whatever is that she has thicker skin that's like armor. I don't know.
Hey, there we go. I've always had the thought, and I don't know. I can't give credit to whoever it was, but I can't stop thinking about it. But like, what if I saw it on Twitter? What if Omega eventually ends up getting the concept Boba Fett prototype all white armor? Like, I think that would be crazy cool.
Oh yeah, because we got a lot of Macquarie, or actually that's Joe Johnston artwork, I believe, but still, like, they love pulling out old stuff. I think that'd be pretty impactful, like to see that legacy character kind of come back like that.
The thing is with that though, the only caveat to that is if they would do that with Omega, I have a slight feeling like if they would ever want to introduce her in live action, they would want to introduce her as like the all white Boba Fett, and introduce her that way, and basically Boba Fett be like, who the heck is this? And they would want to save it.
yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, so we did get a new villain this time around. I mean, we had the cameo with Grand Moff Tarkin, or at least at this point, he's just known as what is it, like Command or Admiral Tarkin, something like that.
Admiral Tarkin.
So we have Vice Admiral Rampart. Now, I think this guy proved his mettle. This guy meant business. Yes, he was pretty one-dimensional, as one-dimensional gets with like a mustache-twirling villain. But seeing what he did to Camino towards the end, seeing the hit he was putting out on different characters like Orn Free Ta, and just like sniping them and using them as like leverage for the Empire. I thought this guy was cunning, conniving, and he's definitely one of the standout Imperial officers that I think we've got in recent memory. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he definitely has those villainous traits, but there were many times throughout the season where I honestly forgot he was even an entity because of like all the other stuff they were focusing on. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's literally how I feel. Like I thought his character was pretty surprisingly. I mean, he was more well done than a lot of our main Bad Batch was. Like I think his character was done well for what it was. Like he was a villain. When he was in the episodes, it was like, impactful as he could be as a villain, I would say. And then, he wasn't just like a pushover. So I don't know. I thought he was pretty good. And, and it fits like the narrative of like, hey, this is like this new formed empire. So of course he's going to be like, try to be hardcore, like, cause he wants to get his rank up and, work his way up in this new organization or new form of government, I guess. So, like, I thought they did really well with him, and I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see where that leads.
Yeah, so we're gonna get to the big thing here: execution of story, execution of the various plots. So we really had like an A, B, and C plot for the most part. Obviously the big main plot is what's going on with Omega, like who is she, how's she interfacing with the squad. That we also had the whole Camino in story with, them getting phased out and seeing like what they're doing with Lama Su and Alisei and Tan Wee, like behind the scenes, like, ooh, like we have to start doing stuff to like, worry about our own resources that are going to dwindle if the Empire doesn't support us anymore, that sort of thing. And then of course you had Crosshair's perspective, being in the Empire, being in this reorganization, dealing with like actual humans and not like dealing with clones anymore. So we'll start with the main plot there, and we'll kind of talk about if it worked, if it flowed well in this first season. It's just the Bad Batch's journey. How do we feel about that from episode 1 to 16?
the Bad Batch's journey, if I feel like I've said it already, it feels like there was very slight progression, but it's like overall, like, what are they doing? Like, why did it take them so long to like get the chips out? Like, why were they just messing around? Like Rex's reaction when he found out that they still have their chips, it was like my reaction as well. Like, why the heck do you still have these chips in there? What are you doing, you morons? But so I guess in season 1, it feels like their progression overall was very like baby steps, whereas I would want them to have progressed a bit further. Like, I don't know how, but it just feels like they could have done more. And I don't know if they're saving the good stuff for the next season or future seasons, but that's pretty much how I feel about their journey overall. It's just kind of all over the place, and I don't know what their main direction is for the characters. Like, if it's just supposed to be mainly focused on helping clones, or if it'll be other stuff as well. Like, I just don't know what the intention is.
Yeah, and I think what could have solved this issue, because I also have an issue with like how long it took to get there to the end, maybe not have 16 episodes, maybe cut out some of the stuff, because especially if it wasn't going to factor into the season, then why include it right now? Yeah, sure, there could be an episode that's like a long, they're playing a long game with it, but I feel like there was too many episodes that were like the world building episodes that could have been like, especially that really stands out to be like a sore thumb is that one episode with the new criminal gangster that was introduced to Devarian.
Infested.
Yeah, episode.
My nickname for that one is Uninvested, because that's how I felt while watching it both times.
So like they could have trimmed the fat, and that could have helped the storytelling quite a bit, I feel like. What about that, Ben? What did you think about the Bad Batch progression? Do you agree with the way things went with some of these episodes? How do you feel about that?
I feel like as you both mentioned, like the progression of the story, I feel like it was all over the place, and it was like really, really babies. It was like 2 baby steps forward and 3 back. Like it just, we didn't really get anywhere. Like with the characters, we really didn't. Like, the only thing that, in my opinion, that really even happened to the squad, for the most part, like as we said, Hunter gained a little bit more brotherly experience. Omega gained actual, like, on Kamino, she had her skills, but it's like when you go to school for something and you're not actually like working that job yet. Like Omega had her skills, but she wasn't field tested. Now the only thing is, she's field tested now. So that's pretty much all that happened in this season. But overall, like, the story and overall progression, it's just like, where are we at? Like, where are we going? As we talked about in our prior episode, Chris, like it just, the way the show went, it didn't get me excited for season 2. And I hate saying that because like, I want to be so excited for everything, anything that Star Wars comes out. Like I always joke around, like as Star Wars fans, we'll be their opening night if it was called like the Jawa's Big Adventure, like, like anything, like we would be their opening night though. But like the Bad Batch, it killed my excitement for the next season. It really did, just because it's like, well, I mean, I'm still going to watch it obviously every week, and hopefully it's great. Like obviously, the trailer could be really great for it, but but still, the way this story went for this season, it was all over the place, and it didn't get me hyped for what's to come, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I think out of all the storylines I mentioned, and you guys can bring up if there were any of more like subplots that I might have missed, but I think the Kamino story worked out the best because I feel like they at least like touched on that every couple episodes to keep the momentum of that story playing in the background, like the Kaminoans conniving against the Empire, like going behind our backs, like, oh, we need to get Omega for this reason, or we need to get a clone back for this reason. And then you have Lama Su, who's also sending out Cad Bane to also go out and get or kill the character and get him. So I liked how there was like even that kind of subterfuge going on, and then actually seeing how that would play into the transition of like the proto stormtroopers that were off McQuarrie design, and seeing like the Republic commandos, and seeing Nal say at the end. So I think out of all the stories from start to finish, we've seen plenty of clones on Kamino, and then we actually see the destruction of Kamino, which is a great like metaphor or like whatever for like, this is the end of an era. Like, this is now the time of the Empire. We're gonna get into season 2, and I won't be surprised if we see like TIE fighters by the end of season 2 at that rate. So do you guys agree with that? As far as like with the Kamino and story and all.
Go ahead.
You're good. You're good. No, I agree. Like, I think this definitely was like symbolizing the end of the Clone Wars era, and it's just going to be transitioning into now more Imperials. Like, I feel like all the clones / stormtroopers, I feel like we're going to get them in just their full-blown normal stormtrooper attire. Like, well, all of that sort of it'll be definitely more of an Imperial vibe to the show. Like, I think anyways. And it's just they did well on that storyline. Like the Kamino thing, that probably was the best overall storyline of the show. And it's crazy to say that because that's like the C plot story. Like, you want to expect that to be like the main thing, because you would expect the show to be about our main characters. But the Kamino thing wrapping up was probably the best thing in my opinion.
And well, here's the thing, like I said before, going into the show, that's actually what I cared about the most. Like, say what you would about the Bad Batch, but like, I'm not like super invested in them after the 4 episodes we've seen them in the Clone Wars. So that's why I was kind of like scratching my head when they announced the Bad Batch, like, oh, this is the way we're going. We're going to actually follow these characters. I mean, this is their chance to shine. It's their show. But I'm like, oh, they're putting that much stake into these characters that seemed pretty one-dimensional when we seen them the first time. But like, the story that I was really invested in was like, what is happening with the clones? What's happening there on Kamino? And to see like a galaxy-changing thing happen in this show is what helps it like redeem itself for season 1. Actually having the balls to like take out Kamino in this show, like, whoa, that was actually very like risky for them, and it paid off. So that's that. I think we've spoken enough about Crosshair and about, I liked where he ends up. I do like that he's not going to just join wherever the Bad Batch is going. Like, hey, maybe he'll go off, and I don't think the Empire is going to really take him back at this point since he killed his own men and all that. They just think of him as a number probably at this point. So maybe he'll be like a lone gunman, kind of like Mandalorian. I would like to see that, like him just kind of going around, making a name for himself, maybe. So I think there's a lot of room for Crosshair because he did grow on me, especially in those last 2 episodes. Like, okay, we actually see like there's promise to this character, where before that I thought he was just a one-dimensional guy.
Yeah, I feel like they did a really great job with dealing with the Kaminoans and how they were feeling about everything and what was going on with the clones as they're being phased out. But I feel like in those last couple episodes, yes, we do get a little bit of a better understanding of Crosshair and the Batch's relationship with him. Like, they've accepted that this is who he is, and they're not going to try as hard to try to save him. But the whole destruction of Kamino, or I guess Tipoca City, which I mean, I think you saw me like tweet about this or something, how like I was wondering if Tipoca City is named after tapioca, which is also used in boba milk tea. But anyway, like, I feel like there would have been more emotional weight to the destruction of that city if there were still some clone troopers left behind. Like, you don't have to have it full like it was before in the Clone Wars with like the tanks and whatever. Like, you could just have like some clone troopers like ordered to like patrol the place in case a batch returns or whatever. But and like as it's being destroyed, like maybe one of the batch members is like, oh, we have to save them, we're our brothers, and the others are like, we can't, there's no time, it's impossible, or whatever. Like, that might have added more emotional weight to the whole thing. I get it, they're trying to make it mainly like make Crosshair the main focus of what should be honed in on. But I just feel like despite like really good dialogue and those character interactions in that finale, they could have done much more with the Crosshair stuff.
Now, I think we could all agree on some really good aspects of the Bad Batch unanimously. And first off, we got to talk about the animation, because I think it is hands down the best Star Wars animation we've seen. They took the same team from the Clone Wars for the most part. You got Joel Aaron, you got Keith Kellogg, you got, Dave Filoni. He's working more behind the scenes on this show, not in, the director's chair as much. But we see this team putting out this quality episode after episode. I feel like they're upping themselves along the way, starting with that initial first episode, the trees, the water, the vastly different environments. I got to give them a shout out for that. Like the fact that we went to so many planets that we have always heard about, like for instance, Ord Mantell, Pantora. We've never seen that planet before. We got the one planet where they find the Republic Commandos on. That was a lot of really unique biospheres that they've developed specifically for Bad Batch. So I really did enjoy just seeing just the epicness of Lucasfilm animation at work there.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like the animation in the show was perfect in my opinion. Like it was so good. The way it was shot, I thought was done really well. The different effects, whether it be like the blasters, the vehicles, the way the character designs were. I feel like the best looking characters though were the Kaminoans. Like the Kaminoans were like sharp. They were spot on. Like I thought they were really great. And just, as you said, also the environments. Like the environments were all done so well. I think the best, like my personal favorite, the water on Kamino was great, but my personal favorite, I thought that was shot so well and just visually was stunning, was the Fennec Shan episode.
Oh yeah.
in the city. Like I thought that was done so well. Like that was probably my favorite one visually. But overall, I can't complain about any of the episodes visually. Like they all looked great.
Yeah, the environments look really great for 3D animation. I wouldn't mind if they tweak the character designs a bit. Like, I still think it's really ridiculous that Omega is a Jango clone, but that was not on many people's minds before the start of the show. Like, people were speculating that she could be a Palpatine clone. So I feel like there are some steps that they need to take with the character designs, and maybe they're already doing that now for the next season. But overall, the worlds themselves looked really great. And like you look back at the beginning of the 3D Clone Wars and see how like back then I didn't mind the animation for it, but you see like the evolution of it and how far it's come. Like back then, some people were just not into the idea of Star Wars going from live action to 3D animation. It was sacrilege or whatever. And now here we are like praising the 3D animated Star Wars stuff and how great it looks.
Yeah. Great stuff there. Yeah. And you know what? The Bad Batch, they do look a little pasty and whatnot. So I think it is worth, like, I know Lucasfilm did say they're going to take a second look at character designs, and hopefully for season 2 they'll be able to kind of adapt some things, look more like Tamora Morrison rather than just what they look like now. But also, which complements the animation, is the awesome music by Kevin Kiner Brothers. And especially, like, I mean, throughout the thing, I mean, the Bad Batch, the theme for the squad and stuff, I always loved that kind of like parade, kind of upbeat, marching kind of music with the drums. But then also having like a lot of really cool callbacks. Like I really enjoyed the Attack of the Clones, like little tie-in music there on that second class episode.
Camino.
Yeah. Then you got also the Imperial Death Star music at that
Yeah.
that one part. So there's like a lot of callback there, but then there's like new themes created for Omega. So they did a really good job of like creating original music, but like sowing the seeds for like music that we either have had before or are going to get eventually in the future. So they brought it like a lot more of an emotional weight, and that's what we need to have as music is enhanced the overall storytelling, which I think they did a great job with.
Yeah, there's like thinking back, I feel like I didn't analyze the music as I was watching the show that much. Like I'd have to go back and listen like really like more closely, but I do remember there's great music in the finale at least, and also like the familiar stuff that you mentioned. So yeah, like the music is a huge part of Star Wars, so the more they can give that a presence and use that to give different characters and different environments a presence, like that's very much in the tradition of the franchise.
What about you,
Yeah.
Ben? How's the music for you?
Yeah, I thought the music was pretty good overall. In terms of the newer music, though, I wasn't too sure because it really wasn't that memorable in my opinion.
All right.
But yeah, like that's where I can agree with you on that, Steven. And then like I feel like the most memorable music was the familiar things we heard, like the playing off nostalgia from Camino and the Death Star and all that sort of thing. But I did, as you mentioned, Chris, I really did like the opening like sequence, like the title music for the show, that little beat, just because it gave you like an army vibe, I guess.
Yep.
Like I don't know, it's something like you'd picture like in an army movie. Like it literally was. So like I thought like every week that is one thing I can give hats off to the show. Like the title music was always like, okay, here we go. Like this is like setting the tone. It's like an army-ish type show, whatever. Like I thought that was the most or the best piece of new music for the show specifically. And then, as I said, the other like familiar type of pieces of music I thought were done really well. Especially the Camino. The Camino one was great. Like I loved hearing Camino again. Like, and all sorts of fans I'm sure loved it just because, it all gave us all flashbacks back to Attack of the Clones, and you gotta love that stuff.
Yeah, so before we get into our final thoughts and our scores, and I do have Milton's final thoughts and scores I'm going to read off as well, let's just take like a quick minute each or so and just talk about speculation, how we could make season 2 better in our eyes, what we think the characters could do, what we'd like to see, any possible cameos, things like that. So I'll just start off myself by saying I hope that we get some connection to maybe Bail Organa or like a rebel cell. I thought that would be maybe how they end off this season, like Hunter like realizing like, oh, I gotta fight for a greater cause. Caminos no more. The Empire means business. I have to rise up against them, and maybe Rex will introduce him to something. So I fully expect that the second season is going to be all about that. I feel like the second season is going to tie us in to characters like Hera and Cham Syndulla. Now that they're off of Ryloth, I think that they're going to have something to do with those guys. And maybe even Saul Guerrera, because remember that first episode, I was very much expecting to see him again. I was very surprised he was only in that very first episode. But now that they did a lot of the world building, now that that's out of the way, I expect to see a lot more of the criminal underworld. Maybe Sid will not be happy with what they're doing, and maybe there will be some bad blood between them and some other crime syndicates coming into play. And Crosshair, I think he's going to go off on his own. I don't think the Empire is going to even come for him. I think he's going to have to figure out a way off Camino because they're going to leave him for dead. So I'll throw it over to Steven.
Yeah, I'm not. I go back and forth on the Rebel Alliance, like early seeds of that type of thing, because like we know that from the books, we have the Ahsoka novel, which takes place 1 to 2 years after Episode 3, and then we have Lords of the Sith, which has Cham Syndulla stuff 5 years after. So I'd honestly prefer that they not touch those characters for the rest of the show, because anytime they flirt with characters they've done stuff with in the books in that time period, I get anxious that they'll make drastic changes to the continuity. But I do think Echo trying to go off and make a bigger difference in some way could be interesting. And a great way to really give more focus in the show, like goals for the batch to have, would be if their main focus is to like figure out what happened to the other clones, like even like the children ones or whatever. Like, I don't know if they're dead or if maybe they're captured or being programmed to fight for the Empire or build stuff or whatever. But if they give the show a singular main goal, like trying to save other clones, or even if they're mainly in one location and trying to help a city against Imperials and the people around there, like I think that would, something like that would give the show more focus and really improve it overall. And yeah, to just give more for each of the main characters to do, and some introspection that really makes you understand all of them better and who they are in this world. Like, they need to feel like all of them need to feel equally breathing and alive in this world, and there need to be like stakes that you can see and stuff that you can see that they can accomplish. So yeah, that's pretty much my 2 cents on how they could improve the show going forward.
Yeah, one thing I like that I'll pick out from that statement is simply, yeah, let's have them in one location. I mean, I mentioned this before, how formulaic, getting on a ship, going around doing a mission, getting back on the ship. Like, have them stranded, have them marooned, or just have them simply volunteering to fight for some people that can't help themselves, and let them be there for like half a season and see how the characters develop there. Throwing it over to Ben.
Yeah, I think there's multiple ways like they can improve and just make things overall better. Like, in terms of the direction I'd like it to go, I think I'm kind of predicting, like, I think there's a decent chance that we're going to get, I think the overall potential plot, like the umbrella plot, and then we'll have all the little things in between. But I think the overall potential umbrella like plot for the show is going to be Omega basically falling back into her character of like, let's help people, but it'll be, we need to go save Nala Se. And then saving Nala Se will be kind of like the overall big plot, and then we'll have all the mini stories in between. And I'm thinking that's what it's going to be. And then, you know, we're going to have to see Boba Fett at some point, just because.
Yeah.
I mean, you name drop him how many times? I mean, how many times in this season they name drop him? And then I think the cool thing, I mean, it depends on how deep they really want to get with it, because of like the demographics and all that sort of stuff. But like, what if, I mean, I guess it could be like a good lesson thing, but what if Omega would somehow like get mad at the Bad Batch, like they bump into Boba Fett, like for some reason or another, and she decides to go with Boba Fett for an episode or two. And then, because, you know, what if it's the whole thing like, hey, I'm your real brother, blah, 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 you know, that sort of thing. And then Omega basically like learns the lesson of like, oh, you know, even though he's my real brother, like, you know, I'm going to go back to my other brothers because this guy's like a bad guy. Like, you know, so I feel like we're going to get some type of a character interaction like that between Omega and Boba, because I don't think it'll be just a straight up like Boba capturing her for a bounty or something. Like, I don't think it'll be that. But I do think we're going to get some type of a character interaction between Boba and Omega, and then like the overall story will be related to potentially trying to save Nala Se. And then we'll get, you know, those little things in between, and potentially like maybe the Rebel thing, but I'm not sure on the Rebels, honestly, just because Hunter is so unsure about them. Yeah,
so great points there, Ben, especially when it relates to Boba Fett. I think, yeah, you're right. Got it. Boba Fett name drop, sister of Boba Fett, that's going to come into picture eventually. This question's for Steven too. I don't know if they could actually go after Nala Se, because if that stuff that's inside of Mount Tantus is important, those characters can't know that stuff exists. I don't think, if it's related to like cloning and stuff. Like, I don't know if they can.
That's true. Yeah.
If they find that out, they're gonna have to kill him, because they would just tell somebody, right? So I don't know, and maybe that's when Crosshair can kind of come into play. Maybe Crosshair can be like our point of view. Maybe he does somehow make it to the Empire and he's stationed there, and they're doing experiments on him. Maybe that's where they do the experiments for like the Death Trooper program with like the augmentations and all that on the recruits. Maybe he's like the prototype or person of that, and that's where we see him getting transformed to like the first Death Trooper there on Mount Tantus. So yeah, there's our speculation for season 2 and ways that they can improve it. But definitely, I think we all agree that we just need a lot more character development from certain characters like Tech and like Echo especially. So we're gonna get into our final thoughts and our scores out of 10, and we got a transmission in from our buddy Milton. He sent us a quick blurb for Bad Batch season 1. He's saying, overall, I thought the season felt like a roller coaster. Started off strong, steady, and consistent. The premiere episode was great and it had me hooked. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, that premiere episode set an unrealistic expectation for the rest of the season. I think that's a pretty good point right there. Whether that's fair or not, I'm not sure, but the show felt bumpy as it progressed, and the Lucasfilm creative team should have known better. There were some good episodes in between, but there were some horrible and awful ones that really dragged down the main narrative of the season. It's like the season would take 3 steps forward in the right direction, but then take 2.5 back for nonsense points that made no sense for the primary characters in the story. I hope season 2 learns from their past miscues and focuses on telling a strong, consistent narrative. My score for season 1 is a 5 out of 5 out of 10. So thanks for sending your thoughts, man. We know the feelings. We've talked many episodes about how a lot of the episodes frustrated us, and seeing things full picture. I think this is the bar, and hopefully they get past this bar in every season past this one. I'm gonna throw it over to our guest, Steven. Give us your final thoughts, man, and your score out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, it really was a roller coaster, even from the opening sequence. Like, I know this has been talked to death, but like the changes with Caleb Doom, like as nuanced as the show got, I feel like they omitted the nuance of Caleb's relationship with those clone troopers. Like they very well could have just used any other Jedi Padawan. And another thing I forgot to mention was there are other Jedi we know are alive in this period based on teases and Charles Soule's Darth Vader comics, like Quinlan Voss, Oppo Rancisis, and Coleman Cash. So I kind of wonder if any of them might factor into this. I was actually surprised that none of them appeared in Jedi Fallen Order. So I don't know if like maybe they could integrate them, but I'm also kind of like, I don't know what to expect when they bring in familiar characters. Like, it depends on the execution, and I'm not sure how well they can do it. But yeah, this show, it had some momentum, but kind of fizzled out by the end, as we talked about with like this whole season 1 discussion. But I do still think there was some great stuff in this first season, and they can only go up from here, I guess. So hopefully this is the worst season, and it's not like the worst season of any television show ever. like if this very well could end up becoming a really incredible show by the end of the entire series, and maybe we'll look back and be like, you know what, season 1 was a bumpy road, but where the show eventually ended up, like that was a great ride. Like I hope that's where we eventually end up. So as it stands, I would say season 1, it was a ride. It had some great stuff, but also some stuff that could have been progressed further. And overall, I think I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
That's fair. That's very fair there, Steven. I'm going to go ahead and give my thoughts based on that. And I think we're all kind of, just from talking about this for the last hour, we're all kind of like in the same headspace about like what we're feeling about the show. We find its faults, we find its triumphs at certain moments, and yeah, roller coaster. I'm gonna keep repeating that word. Best describes this season. Just ups and downs. I kind of track my trajectory of like my overall excitement level on a week-to-week basis, like with that premiere being like, oh man, this is brand new Star Wars animation. We watched that episode. Me, Milton, and Ben were all glowing on that first episode review, like, oh, this is so great. We had literally no negatives to say. Literally the second episode, another great episode. We had this great canon-defining moment of, oh, they're developing a Mandalorian kind of information dump with the chain codes and all. So it's like, oh, cool. They're actually like going into the greater Star Wars canon lore and giving us like answers in like 35 years, whatever, 40 years prior to that. So we're getting into all that stuff. But then we had ups and downs with the episodes, non-consistent, inconsistencies here and there. And you said this, Steven, very well about how this is not terrible. It's we've seen seasons of anything far worse than this, but like our expectations as Star Wars fanatics is like, we want this stuff to be great. Like we've seen the Clone Wars all 7 seasons. We've seen Rebels, some really great Star Wars animation out there. Resistance, great stuff out there. But it didn't hit some of those storytelling highs as consistently as other Star Wars seasons of television. But it still is better than a lot of television in general. But we just expect so much of it at this point. So kind of some of it can kind of be fair, but some of it a little bit unfair criticism. But looking at episode to episode, when our wheels started turning a little bit, we started getting these episodes of like, oh, there goes Omega getting captured again. Oh, she's going to make it out in the same freaking episode. It's just like you started to lose stakes. And I think that's the best way for me to describe it. As we started getting further into season, I started feeling a little less inclined to like be as excited to watch it that week. Cause I'm like, oh, like I feel like it's going to be another run of the mill episode. Like it started going through my mind and tempering my expectations. Like everybody seems safe. Everybody seems like, oh, they'll get out of this fine. So that's when it started to like lose me on that level. And I'm actually on the same wavelength as you, Steven. I'm also going to give it a 7 out of 10. After all that, I'm still calling it pretty much a good season. It's just, it has a lot of room for improvement. So hopefully next season we can do better. And I will leave it with you, my good friend Ben. What were your overall thoughts and score out of 10, man?
Well, we'll have to end this on the dark side then. So like, I think the show as a whole, like I added it up. I went back through Disney Plus and looked at the season, and like in terms of like a sports season, like a win-loss record, like I feel like this show was a 7-9 team at best. 7 wins, 9 losses. Like I feel like they had more bad episodes than good. Like a lot of the clunky episodes, I feel like you could just cut out. Well, as we said earlier, the infested episode, you could totally drop that out of this season and you wouldn't tell the difference. So like you have so many instances of that. You have mishandlings of, in my opinion, iconic characters like Cad Bane. He basically gets outsmarted by like a 12-year-old. Like, wouldn't he as this hardcore bounty hunter, like expect, this kid to potentially like, have a playful talk with his droid, like, so like little things like that were just adding up for me, where it was like, what is going on here? Like we have this iconic moment with Cad Bane, and then it's just like kind of a flop. And then we have so many good moments in the season, as you said, Chris. Like we started out the first couple episodes, we were like, wow, this is great, blah 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 blah, and then it just slowly like chipped away, and then we got the Cad Bane stuff, and we were like, oh, okay, cool. I remember all of us basically tweeted like, hey, it's back on track. And then it was like, nope. Let's just go right off the rails. Like we went back on track. Maybe the wheel of our train barely got back on track, but then they're like, let's take a hard left. So like they just like, there were so many filler episodes, so many. And I think a lot of this too was impacting me maybe even more than you guys, because I was watching it when it was airing at like 3 a.m. So I was like up at 3 o'clock, and literally, like I said, I hate hammering on that infested episode, but it's such a good example because, all of us theorized, we're like, oh, maybe this infested thing, maybe it's going to be like the clone troopers chips or something, blah, blah, blah. And one of my good friends, he's always in the chat on here. He was like, dude, I'm calling it now. It's going to be like Geonosians or some type of bugs or something. And I'm like, no, there's no way. Like, this is the end of the season. There's no chance. And then you guys should have seen me at like 3:00 in the morning, like 5 minutes into that episode, and there's bugs. I literally just bursted out laughing. I was like, here we go. Like, so like, I was like, here we go. Like, I literally honestly thought about just shutting the show off because I was like, okay, this is bad. So like, you have instances like that, but then you have really cool episodes. Like the Camino Destruction episode was really good, I thought. You know, as we said, the premiere, the second episode, all that. Like I think in the minority, but I think the Hera episodes were really bad because I think they were totally misplaced. Like, this isn't a Rebels show. It's, you know, you're not using your main characters. Like, what's the point? So like little things like that added up for me to make me really not be excited for the second season. As I mentioned earlier, like it killed my excitement for the second season. I mean, of course, I'm still going to be watching it probably at 3:00 in the morning because we'll get some trailer to hype us all up and everything. And I'll be like, oh, they're going to redeem it. Maybe we'll get like Republic Commando versus the Bad Batch, like, you know, that type of stuff. And then, you know, who knows where it'll lead. But like, I mean, well, that's another thing. Like, I love seeing like some of the cameos, like Scorch. That was great seeing him in there. Cad Bane was great. Saul Guerrero, I don't think we mentioned him yet today. Like Saul Guerrero, it was great seeing him. Again, with him, I think his animated version is much better than the live action, but that's a thing for another day. Sure. So like you have little things like that adding up to me, and it just made the show just be like, meh, it's just another show. Like, if I go back to rewatch any of this show whatsoever, I'm going to just go back to the highlight episodes and skip the rest because there's no reason to watch the rest. And in my opinion, and then like on the flip side, a show like Rebels, for example, I think Rebels was done great. Like almost every episode was really, really good. Mm-hmm. Like it was so coherent. It was done so well. And I think that's another issue. And it's not even like an issue of like the fans. Like the expectations were Rebels. Like Rebels is such a good show. You go from that under the Disney umbrella to what we got with the Bad Batch. And I'm like, what is going on? Like it's not going well. So like, I don't know. It was just really disappointing in that regard because I thought a lot of things could have been done better. You know, as we mentioned, like the animation was great. The music was pretty good. I thought Omega's character was done really well, things like that, like those type of things were done really, really well. And just a lot of the overall mismanagement of the show, in my opinion, is what really killed it for me. And I think that's just an overall greater reflection and criticism of Star Wars, in my opinion, that we've had over these past few years. Like, we've had so many hirings and firings of directors and all these different things going on behind the scenes at Lucasfilm. Like, it's just, to me, that's just an overall, like, how sloppy this show was is just an overall reflection of like how Lucasfilm has been on a lot of their things behind the scenes, in my opinion. But yeah, with all that being said, I would have to say, there were some good moments, but the bad moments outweighed it for me. But I would still have to give it a 5 out of 10, just because I think there's potential there to grow, but they have to really make up a lot of ground with what they have laid in place. Like, because, as you mentioned, like basically to start the episode, Steven, like we basically ended up kind of in the same place. So that means you're going to have to do some stuff to really step the story forward in the next season. But yeah, so with all that being said, I'd have to give this show a 5 out of 10.
And
right.
That is
so we
fair.
got 2 7s, a 5, and what was it, 5.5 for Milton?
Yep.
Okay, so overall our collective average is 6.125 for season 1.
Okay, so we basically got a barely passing score. It got a D from us, so it's hanging on there. It's still passed, but barely. So there you have it, guys. That was our season 1 breakdown and review. You can go back and watch prior and listen to prior episodes of Outer Rim Transmission, where we review every single episode of The Bad Batch. And actually, I think the first 2 or 3 episodes we didn't actually have Outer Rim Transmission as a full podcast yet, so you might actually have to watch like the first 2 or 3 on YouTube. So make sure you check that out there. But man, I want to thank you for spending so much time with us tonight, Steven. I know we were going to keep this to like 2 hours. We're almost at the 2.5 hour mark here, but we had such a great discussion, such awesome times talking, chatting Star Wars. So go ahead, tell the people where they can find you and everything that you're up to these days.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. It's like I said, I was really looking forward to doing this discussion, and I had a lot of free time, and we went all over the place. It was great. I think the last time, which was the first time that you and I, Chris, were on screen together, was at Force Fest, which next weekend is a year ago, which is crazy.
Holy crap.
But yeah, so people can find me at Steven Shinder on Instagram and Twitter, Steven Shinder Storytelling on Facebook. You can also go to stevenshinder.com, where I have info about my fantasy horror comedy novel Lemons Will Make Rain. Still working on the next book, making progress here and there, so keep an eye out for that. And like I said, I have Delayed Replay, the improvised movie review podcast, which recently, last week's episode was on Reminiscence, which, that movie finally came out today. I still need to see it. And this tomorrow's episode is on Mission Impossible 7. And next week is Clifford the Big Red Dog. So you get a huge variety of different titles and genres. And you can also find me on Yes Shift with my dad. It's spelled YESSHIFT. It's all one word. And yeah, we basically talk news about that progressive rock band, Yes, and also look back on works by the band and their current and past members. It's a long and convoluted history with lots of twists and turns, and it's amazing, and we just love talking about it. So yeah, you can find both of those podcasts on Anchor, and if you find them there, it'll show you all the platforms we're on, like Apple and Spotify and all that good stuff. So yeah, I think that's everything, and thanks again for having me.
Of course. So we're definitely going to have you on in the future. I think it'd be fun to hopefully get you on for one of the season 2 episodes to review for sure. So you guys haven't seen or haven't heard the last of, you haven't seen or haven't learned the last of legendary Steven Shinder. And I will make sure I put all your links and everything for our viewers and watchers to go check out your stuff, because you got some really creative stuff going on, man. And Ben, thanks. Where can they find you? And what are you talking about? Are you talking about anything besides Madden these days?
Pretty much that's all it's been lately, is just talking about Madden, not sleeping very much because I'm grinding away on that game and most likely will be for the next 6 or 7 months. So I've been up to that, and between Madden and talking Star Wars, pretty much the only things I talk about are football, Star Wars, and fitness. That's pretty much it. That's my life. So you can find me talking about all that stuff at Real Ben Maynard on Twitter and Instagram. And, you can find me here every week on Outer Rim Transmission.
And there you go. And for my YouTube videos this week, you guys can check out my review for Free Guy. One of the probably the best video game movie ever made, but ironically, it's not based on a video game. I definitely recommend you check out. Yeah, the first best one is actually not based off a video game. So there you have it. Check that out, and it's only available in the theater. So, venture out. If you feel safe to go out, definitely go watch it. And next week, we got news of this a couple hours ago, and we've been going on and on and on about the Lego Star Wars game. Is it dead? Is it coming out this year? Yada, yada, yada. We got official confirmation that we are going to get some some kind of footage, whether or not it better be gameplay. It's got to be gameplay at this point. At Gamescom, come up on Wednesday, so we're going to be talking a heck of a lot of whatever we see. Hopefully, we get some kind of release date or at least a release window at this point. So that's going to be there on Wednesday. That'll be revealed during opening night live. Jeff Keighley's live stream will be going, I think, about 1 p.m. Eastern, I believe. So stay tuned for that. So for Ben, for Steven, for myself, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel and hit that bell notification icon so you're notified of future videos. And do check us out in our audio version over there on Apple iPod or Apple Music and all those other places you can download podcasts. So that's going to do it for us. Transmission out.